Live tonight from the Silver State, the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series continues into week number 4 of the 2018 season. Defending series champion Ryan Luza snagged his first win of the year just 2 weeks ago and closed the gap on championship points leader Keegan Leahy. Tonight, we get our first taste of 1.5-mile action from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But before we get to tonight's 167-lap contest, we look back to round number 3 from Richmond Raceway in this week's installment of your iRacing Race Recap. Green flag flies, and we are NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series racing in Fontana. Third race of 2018 up to speed.
And top two quickly get single file. It's the 21 of Bias on the outside. And there's Brad Davies on the inside. Remember back to ISM Raceway, he played that pit strategy at the end of the race. Got himself a little bit of a better finish. Right now up in a third. No pit strategy required to get that starting position. Pack of drivers racing around him, racing with Chris Overland, Chris Shearburn, Michael Conti on the outside. He's coming through the pack, and Chris Overland and he have a little bit of contact, little slide down there in corner number 4, but not able to save it and back up into the fence. We'll see if anybody gambles and comes out of pit road first as they drop the jack on the 24 and waiting. He is down and away, and I believe Zach Novak may have got him at the line.
A couple of storylines as we head into the second run of this race. Pace car headed down, only one yellow so far tonight from Fontana. Zach Novak is antsy to get going. Green flag is back in the air.
Oh, and there's some games happening in the mid-pack. See that the 55 of Schoenberg way up to the top of the racetrack. I think we had some people trying to jump in and cause a bit of an accordion effect. Let's see if we're going to have any problems through 1 and 2 here for the first time. Back to green flag racing, and everything's tight up and down the field as you might expect. New tires, people are confident with the grip. Going to have to watch that 5 car of Michael Conti. You see Brad Davies, he's already fighting with the 74 of Taylor Hurst down this back straightaway. Keegan Lee involved in that fight as well.
And he is not going to get it again. How about Jimmy Mullis and Ryan Luza, who had the bad stop last time, comes in and puts it on a dime. Third in, first out, Luza, the big winner on that one. The 6 car holds off a little bit longer, but puts the right foot down, and we are halfway home from Fontana. Green flag is back in the air. Top 2 will single file out. The battle will be for third between Novak and Hurst to turn 1. As he enters lap 125, was all the momentum in favor of Keegan Leahy? Could Leahy go back-to-back? Could he be the driver who gets the first multiple win on the year? Not only is Ryan Luza going to become the third different winner in 3 races on 2018, but he'll also become the first ever multi-time winner here in Fontana in the history of this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. Took it home last year in 2017, as Randy had just mentioned. Maybe a good omen, because he went on later that season to take the championship. He's on the right foot once more, and he'll come to 4 for the final time. Ryan Luza going to take his first win of 2018, winner tonight from Auto Club.
Oh, that was late.
Hey guys! This week, the 6 on my team are Truex, Logano, Larson, Blaney, Chase, and Suarez. For the rest of you, better luck next week.
She's missing out, dude. Yeah.
The all-new NASCAR Fantasy Live. Visit NASCAR.com/fantasy and build your team today.
road to $10,000 rolls through the entertainment capital of the world, where tonight from Las Vegas, the best oval sim racing drivers in the world continue the quest towards an NASCAR sanctioned championship with the first intermediate race of the season, and it is from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway, where we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to our continuing coverage of the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series at RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. As always, happy to be with you, myself, Evan Pasoko, alongside with Tim Terry and Randy Cheneth. Up top, downstairs is our director, Hugo Louise, pushing the buttons and bringing us to you this evening. And Tim, we have had quite the kickoff to the season so far. 3 different kind of racetracks: Daytona, Phoenix, and Fontana. 3 different race winners: Nick Ottinger, Keegan Leahy, and Ryan Luza. And tonight we get a first taste of that intermediate 1.5 mile action that'll make up a good portion of the season, but haven't seen it yet. A little bit late in the season, just hitting it by week 4.
And you know, you look back, you talk about 3 different winners in 3 different races. You look at this Las Vegas Motor Speedway, it has produced a lot of different winners as well. Obviously, Ryan Luza last year going to victory lane. He's going to be strong here tonight as well, starting in 6th. But a guy like Brad Davies, who's won here before, who's had a solid season coming in, just outside that top 10 in the point standings. He's going to have a good night, I'm sure. You look back at all those winners, though. Jake Sturgis has gambled here a couple of times on fuel mileage. We could see that again here this evening. Sandeep Banerjee went to victory lane in the inaugural race in 2010. Lots of different winners. Going to be lots of different strategies and a lot of fast race cars.
Sturgis, the only driver to have won multiple races here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. Of course, this track has been on the calendar since 2010, so this will be the 9th time it makes an appearance on the calendar. And Randy, of course, we come into tonight slowly starting to get a look at what the championship picture will be like. As noted, it is Keegan Leahy coming into tonight, who leads in the championship with that win at ISM a couple of weeks ago. The likes of Ray Alfalo, Ryan Luza, Bobby Zelensky, Michael Conti inside of the top 5. Obvious, there's no surprise there. But the big thing to keep in mind is after tonight, we're going to be about a third of the way through this regular season. So while it still does feel like we're kind of easing ourselves into this championship, you're running out of time, because after the opening 13 weeks, that's when we go playoff racing. So if you're not in those names in the top 5, if you're not a Jimmy Mullis, a Derek Bordeaux, a Cody Bias, a Logan Clampett, or a Taylor Hurst, or inside of the top 10, you're going to have to pick it up sooner rather than later.
It is one of those things that these drivers need to keep in mind, that you still feel somewhat early in the season because it's only round number 4 of this championship, but when only 18 races are up on the board, you need to start getting into your groove relatively quickly. We've seen that from a lot of our championship contenders already. I don't think it's any surprise that Ray Alfalo and Ryan Michael Luza, Bobby Zelensky, those 3 drivers have gotten off to a strong start given their performances in the championship last season. That's 3 of your championship contenders at Homestead last year already in the top 4. And then, like you said, Keegan, Jimmy Mullis, Conti, a lot of familiar names up there near the top, but some interesting names as well through the mid part of the points right now that are kind of struggling to get off to a good head of steam.
And of course, the likes of Kansas and Charlotte, Chicago, many more, Atlanta, Homestead, even at the end of the season, many more of these 1.5 mile racetracks still to come. But Vegas is the first one up, Tim. It's one that if you've been in this series for any amount of time, you're obviously very familiar with this place, so that this is the 9th consecutive season in which this racetrack has been on the calendar. So a progressively banked racetrack that's got a little bit of bumps down at 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. How does that experience play into effect tonight?
It's going to play a little bit into it. Obviously, cars have changed a little bit over the years, but if you like Las Vegas, if you like these 1.5-milers, you're going to like this race tonight. Maybe play some pit strategy, throw that in there. We'll see how this race plays out, but I think we're in for a good one here.
Practice session just rounding down to a close means that cars are heading trackside as we get set to go racing for 167 laps tonight in the entertainment capital of the world. So let's go trackside and take a look at your RaceSpotTV starting grid. Pole position for this one with a 28.387. Only driver to be able to crack down into there in the practice sessions earlier tonight. Zach Novak will start up on a pole position. He'll be accompanied by Derek Bordeaux, who rolls off in second. Back on row 2, going to be the 24 to Keegan Leahy and the 2 of Ray Alfalo. They'll start 3rd and 4th respectively. David Rattler just behind them through your top 5.
6th place going to belong to Ryan Luza, Jimmy Mullis in 7th, Nick Shelton. Great qualifying effort there for the 12. He'll start 8th, Brad Davies in 9th, and Andrew Fash the 3rd. Great qualifying effort there too.
Taylor Hurst is going to roll off 11th with Bobby Zelensky in 12th, Brandon Pipgrass in 13th, Nick Ottinger, Colton Davis, Michael Guest. your top 16.
Continuing through, you've got Booster right behind there in the number 17 spot. 18th belongs to Alex Bergeron, and then Chris Overland and Brian Schoenberg, 19th and 20th, make up row 10.
Your next 5 include Cody Bias in the 21 car starting 21st, Blake Reynolds, Casey Tucker, Jarl Tien in 24th, and Christian Chalner 25th.
Nolan Scott is going to be 26th with Marcus Richardson 27th, Corey Vincent 28th, Jake Sturgis 29th, and Dylan Duvall 30th.
Final qualifiers in this one all the way through the end. 31st, Logan Clampett. 32nd is Timmy Hill. Joe Lorello is going to be 33rd. Philip Diaz, 34th. Adam Gilliland, 35th, alongside Casey Kerwin, 36. P37 on the grid for Michael Conti. Top 5 of the points, but he's got a lot of work to do tonight. He's in front of Ryan Lowe, who will start 38th. And Chris Shearburn will round out your field all the way at the back. He is scheduled to roll off in 39th position, and it does look like all cars are on the grid as we head down the Dallas straightaway. Lights off on top of the iRacing.com pace car, so it looks like everybody is going to be able to take to the green flag tonight. At least at the moment, no drivers appear that they are starting this one from pit lane. So we'll go racing tonight. 167 miles at this 1.5 mile racetrack gets us up to our 250 mile marker come the end of tonight's contest. Las Vegas Motor Speedway, 1.5 miles in length, progressive banking with 12 degrees on the bottom, 20 up top. It's going to be hot and slick. Watch the tires, especially over the course of the runs this evening. But all of that being said, as always, we're happy that you're spending your Tuesday night with us at RaceSpotTV at iRacing Live. Pace car down and in the field in the hands of Zach Novak, American Ethanol green flag, and we are racing from Las Vegas, round 4 of the 2018 NASCAR Antifreeze iRacing Series. And Novak, no worries, first time into the quarter, he'll lead in from the battle for second. It's got the 04 of Bordeaux under attack. How about 3 wide? It's Ray Alfalla up the inside, trying to go 4th to 2nd.
That was a pretty move by Ray Alfalla to put himself to the inside and pick up 2 positions and quickly work his way to that runner-up position. But here goes Leahy back on the outside trying to make something happen. Coming out of corner number 4, they'll come by side for position number 2. Looks like it's single file for the most part throughout the top 10 behind them. This battle for position number 2 still hanging on though through 1 and 2.
Big variance in the banking on the inside and the outside of the racetrack. That 2 hung it at very low at 1 and 2. That's where we're going to get the most of those bumps. Is the center of that corner going to really make those cars push up and off. Of course, once we get into the middle portion of these runs, 20 laps or so, drivers going to really start to see them sliding around as those tires wear away. Racetrack right there, that little bit of an extra 8-bit on the inside on the front stretch. Always an option. Both the 24 and the 2 took that time by. With 2 laps complete, it's been Olsak Novak out in front. Leahy ends up second. Alfalla wasn't able to get that final spot. He's still up 1 though, because we saw that 04 Eric Bordeaux go outside line 2nd to 4th right off of the get-go. So not the best start for him, but other than that, not a whole lot going on top 10. A couple of drivers picking up 3-4 spots there. First fight on track with the 27 of Jimmy Mullis up against the 12 car of Shelton.
These drivers are going to fight wheel to wheel in towards corners number 1 and 2 for the 4th time in this one. Still drivers trying to get a little bit aggressive here as see up on that top side. Jimmy Mullis down there. He's going to be able to get the job done now. Brad Davies wants the spot. 1 car behind. Up into the wall. I believe that was a 74 Taylor Hurst who pushed a little bit high and got that wall on the back of that Dallas straightaway.
Not something you want to do. Look at the 13. Oh, there's going to be contact. Jimmy Mullis gets sideways. He hangs on. He's going to lose a little bit of speed. The 12 of Shelton is going to be the one that tries to jump all over him on that one. They are going to be okay. And that 27 of Mullis got rubbed up by the 13. Davies just got tight. And at that point, there's really nothing he can do about it. A good recovery. And everybody's going to be able to hang on as the action continues now in a fight for 3rd position. That number 6 car on the inside of the racetrack. Your winner from 2 weeks ago, that is Ryan Luza. He gets up and around Ray Alfalla, who after getting out of the gate real hot has dropped a couple of spots.
Yeah, Alfalla was quick to move to position number 2, but falling back a couple of spots here. As you mentioned, Bordeaux moves by, Luza moves by, and here comes the 09 car of David Rattler to the inside. Rattler, another great qualifying effort to start off this season, start off this race. We'll see what he can do throughout the 167 laps here this evening, but right now he's got Alfalla on the outside, and Rattler in that Ford looking pretty sporty so far here this evening. Just in front of him, Ryan Luza again on the move.
And no surprise that Lusa wants to keep the pressure on. You see him all over the back end of the 04 machine as here in Bordeaux run 4th and 3rd respectively on the racetrack. That's a look out at the back end of the 04 entry of Derek Bordeaux. 6-car trying to dig at the inside. I get right up to that left rear quarter panel. Now make a look to the inside, and it'll be short-lived. The 04 Bordeaux had to get way out of the gas to allow that one to hang on as we got a battle for the race lead in front now. Here comes the 24 on the inside. That is Keegan Lay. He had the advantage off, but the 15 is going to use the speed of coming off of the high side of the racetrack to lead at the line. That time it was just 1/1000th of a second. Leahy now trying to clear the 15, but Novak not willing to give this one up again. Going to have to run off of the corner.
Phenom Racing Team has been strong through the first 4 races of this championship as Keegan Lee is going to stay wheel to wheel with the lockdown driver of Zach Novak down to the bottom in 3 and 4, and he's going to be able to pick that spot up. So where Ray Alfala struggled down there on the inside, the 24 lead is going to be able to make that work through the tri-oval once again. But Phenom has gotten off to a great start. They've won 2 of these first 3 races, and right now they run first, 3rd, and 4th on the racetrack. And Luther and Bordeaux, they are quick, and I think going to make that 1, 2, and 3 here in about the next 10 laps.
When you can see the rest of that battle that we were following for 3rd out of the back end of some of those shots, as you see now the top 6 cars or so single file side by side for 7th. A little bit further back, that's a battle between the Bullis and Davies right now for that 7th spot, but Lusa was able to complete that pass on Bordeaux. Happened right after we jumped up, watched that battle for the race lead. So inside of the racetrack worked in both of those exchanges. Mullis, in fact, is going to get the inside around Brad Davies, so that settles 7th and 8th position for the time being as well. You can see mid-pack, though, there's still a lot going on, almost like we just had a restart 10 laps ago, wouldn't you say? 2 by 2 at a battle for 16th position on back. The 54 of Michael Guest, the 05 of Ottinger, first group duel in it, right now in 3 and 4.
You've got some drivers that missed the mark in qualifying, and they're trying to make their way a little closer towards the front of the field, like that 05 of Ottinger, the 3 of Jarl Tien on the outside, Bergeron in this battle as well, the double clutch 47 of Chris Overland in there, and then Michael Guest working the inside. It looks like a lot of these drivers have gravitated towards that second groove in the middle of the pack. Caution is out in the speedway, though.
First caution of the night. Doesn't look like the problem came from up front. It is the 42 of Dylan Duvall. A lot of damage on the Simcraft Chevrolet entry. You can see the entire front clip of that race car no longer there as he was turned around the wrong way. Quarters 1 and 2. We're going to send a look at this one on the RaceSpotTV replay, and you'll see right here going into the quarter. Watch for the 41 machine, the black entry on the inside of the racetrack. That's Jake Sturgis. And right there, they get into each other. Tough to say if the 42 came down, 41 pushed up a little bit, but it sent that 42 for a spin and got into the outside wall once and then bounced back up off of the 5. That's where the brunt of the damage came from, and for somebody like a Michael Conti, no good news in that either. Top 5 of the points into tonight, starting way back in the pack. That's the risk you run of being back there in the fray, is getting caught up in somebody else's mess, and Conti took a good lick on that one as well.
Yeah, I would not be very happy if I was the 5 at all after that one. Pretty much no fault of your own there, and just sort of get the short end of the stick, get caught up in someone else's incident. We've seen Conti be good this year, but also struggle on the long runs, and that's definitely not going to be do very well for him in terms of the points. Probably the long-term speed of that car tonight.
Obviously not going to be the normal pit strategy, but with a yellow and 10 laps down, race leaders are headed to the pit lane. Keegan Leahy, first driver in, is going to be down to the 3rd to last pit stall, but we'll see if Ryan Luce right behind him in the number 1 pit stall, rather Zach Novak in a number 1 pit stall, if he'd be able to win this race off of pit road with that advantage. Right side tires going up for everybody. The question is going to be, do you go for 2 early, make up some track position mid-pack, or do you want 4? All of the race leaders choose the latter of those options. Race off of the pit lane. He at least made a good push for it, but it will be that 24, Keegan Leahy in first and out first on the pit lane.
Yeah, Novak tried to get that launch from that first pit box, but could not get the lead off of pit road. Ryan Luza going to move up the rank to 3rd there, and you look back through that top 10, there's some stout drivers in that top 10, and there's some drivers that got a couple of great qualifying runs. Andrew Fayash, David Rattler, as we mentioned before. There's a few drivers that could surprise us here this evening. Evan, I think back to a couple of years ago when Jake Sturgis won this race for the first time. Used some pit strategy, rolled the dice. I think his nickname coming out of there was Jackpot Jake. We'll see what happens here this evening, though. I talked to a couple of teams that said, if this thing theoretically goes green to the end of the race, do we do 2 stops? Do we do 3 stops? I had one team come to me and say we do 2. There's no questions asked because 2 is faster than 3. So we'll see how this plays out. 13 laps in, we still could see some green flag runs here. Las Vegas tends to lean towards that.
If he can play his cards right and all of the puns aplenty, if you will, here from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Of course, yellow flags here and there, Randy. Obviously going to shuffle up what the strategy call is going to be. Nobody would want to pit this early. Over as the lights go out on top of the pace car, you've got to take advantage you get him. And I don't think 10 laps in is going to make a huge effect on a fuel number, but if we're saying the halfway point of a run, you come down, that's definitely when the guys on top of the box are going to have to make those audible calls.
It's going to be the big thing to watch in terms of the strategy. The cautions, of course, always play large effect. I heard similar things to Tim that long runs were going to be the good way to go around here, but with the relatively cool weather, that may somewhat change. You may see guys go for a little bit shorter, but then again, usually in the colder weather, the tires will last a bit longer. It's going to all come down to the gamble here at Vegas as we all continue the jokes here in Sin City.
You can see we're riding on board right now with the driver of the number 28 machine. That's Casey Tucker, who runs right now in the number 26 spot. He is going to be our RaceSpotTV featured driver over the course of the night. So a big thanks to Casey Tucker for giving us that onboard camera with him. And he's going to get set to go back green for this one. We'll check in with him over the course of this race. He's mid-pack, so he'll have his hands full on this one. As the pace car gets set to high back down and in, the 24 Leahy going to be in control for this restart after it was Zach Novak the first time out. See if the 24's got that bite right out of the gate. He does. It is a very bad start for the 15. The 04 of Bordeaux goes high to low, and we're 3 wide in a battle for 4th. Right off for the restart. That's Ray Alfala's number 2 going up the middle of the racetrack, and he'll get at least one of those spots as the O'Donnell Rattler now works the way inside through turn 2.
Man, Ray Alfala has been lights out on these starts and restarts so far, albeit we still are early in this one, but that too has some short run speed and is on these restarts. He goes to the inside of Novak, behind him Davies and Mullis going at it, and David Rattler up here in the mix. Are we going to go 3 wide again on the front straightaway? Rattler down to the apron, Alfala is in the middle. We'll see how this works down into corner number 1. Novak pulls his foot out of it. The guys in front of him don't though.
And the 15's the one that wanted nothing to do with him, but he saw the 13, the 27 funny behind him, had to duck back down in line, or he would have got boxed out. 3 wide again. The 04's got to check up. That's the 6 Alusa in front of Derek Bordeaux, and that will allow Rattler to move himself to the inside. The 27 of Mullis into the outside wall. He'll come down and tag Bobby Zelensky. Both of those cars spin through the grass. The 14 is also around. I think that's Kerwin behind them. None of that, though, brings itself back up above the white line, so we're going to have no caution, and we stay green. Big problems, though, for some fast cars.
Yeah, that's going to be a really, really hurtful incident there, especially for someone like Bobby Zielinski, who's sort of having a quiet start to this championship. Saw him get started early. Actually, we got a car coming down pit road. Who's that? That's the 04 of Derek Bordeaux, running 3rd on the racetrack, Phenom Racing Team. He seems to have problems. Maybe got a penalty here on the restart, and now he's slow down pit road coming towards his box.
I would have to imagine if it is anything, it is that penalty, because the 15 did have an atrocious restart, but he came down well before the start-finish line changed lanes, so that may very well be what's happening with the 04 of Derek Bordeaux as he heads down into the box and serves what looks like a penalty. He's off and away. This is going to cost him a lap, though, because here comes Keegan Leahy by the start-finish line. The car that just came down pit road still on the pit lane. There he is on the inside of the racetrack. So Bordeaux not involved in the accident out of turn 4, but that penalty is going to cost him a lot down a lap at lap number 19.
And a nice pit entry for that 04. Could have been more atrocious as behind them they continue to fan out down the back straightaway. As you see in the back of the shot, there's a lot that has gone on in these last 5 laps, and we're still green flag racing. It's like we're at Richmond 2 weeks down the road, but we're at the 1.5 miler at Las Vegas as Keegan Leahy continues to lead. Brad Davies is on the move within the top 5, and there's some cars in the middle of the pack that are trying to make their way towards the front of the field within that Hornet's Nest we talked about just before that first dog.
Well, I couldn't figure out what happened with the 14 because it was Jimmy Mullis and Bobby Zelensky. Those were the 2 who made the contact and were spinning down in the grass. Kerwin's incident was separate. You see him all the way at the back there. He did a good job of recovering. He either got loose or just tried to make an aggressive move to the inside, but came right over the nose of Marcus Richardson. So I'm sure the number 1 Toyota has some damage. That's where Kerwin came spinning from. He was well behind where the initial contact was. That's how we ended up with about 3 drivers that involved in that when the you see Richardson, who has that right front damage on the number 1 Toyota after the 14 came across his nose. So that's how he ended up with a total of 3 cars spinning through the grass. But of course, they were well off of the racing surface, and everybody was able to hang on. Nobody ended up on pit road or into the pit road wall. So this race stays green. That split the guys up front up by quite some bit. The top 4 cars spread out through 1.7 seconds amongst all of them. So a lot more calm up there, at least, as everybody was checking up and trying to get out of the way. Still obviously chaotic mid-pack. Great fight going on right now between 11th and 12th position, as that's the 16 machine now of Nolan Scott going up the inside of Michael Guest. He wants to crack the top 10 for the first time tonight.
Nolan Scott's going to drive it down to the bottom and do his best to work himself forward if he can. That 16 car just barely gets clear, and he's going to pick himself up that spot over Michael Guest and take that top 10 position now. But I think we're going to be seeing stuff like this on the restarts all night, Evan. Cool weather means those tires are going to be full of grip once we come back to green flag racing, especially after the guys are able to come down pit road and get full-fledged tires. I think we're going to see 2 and 3 wide for the first 10 to 15 laps of a run pretty much all night tonight.
That 16 machine is not shy about being aggressive. Nolan Scott, though, opens up the inside. You can see the 04 machine trying to come up on the bottom. That typically wouldn't work out all that well for you. That's Derek Bordeaux, who is a lap down, so do keep in mind this is not a fight for position. But the 04 machine, at least, feeling like it. He was running top 5. He's got a top 5 car, so to be able to get around the P10 entry of Nolan Scott, and he does so. 16, I think, the right call to let him go instead of fighting him, because he does have a car. Try to battle him for position right out the back end. The orange and white car up top, that is Michael Guest, who has also made a little bit of a charge to the front, made it up a couple of positions. And when we're talking about hard chargers, well, you see that black and red Toyota a little bit out of the screen there. That's the 46 of Logan Clampett. Started 31st position in this race. He is 12th. So if he can complete this pass on the 20 out of pit grass, he'll be up 19 spots from where he started this race, and are only through 25.
Yeah, there's a driver that had to rebound after qualifying as he continues to battle with Pipgrass, and great run for Pipgrass as well, just outside the top 10 right now, knocking on the door as Clampett completes that pass. Michael Guest in front of them, a little bit high, wide, and handsome that last time at a corner number 4, but still sets his sights on the Nolan Scott machine in front of him, and there's a double nickel Brian Schoenberg as well within the top 10. So some drivers starting to make their way up a little bit closer towards the front of the field as this run goes on. About 13 laps or so on these tires, as some of these guys will start to slip slide around here as we continue to click off the laps of Vegas.
Earl chasing down Keegan Leahy, who started this race in 3rd position, has not looked back since taking over the race lead. He's now a second down in front of Ryan Luza, as you see a short-lived battle, albeit, for that number 9 position. Nolan Scott, the 16 machine, is able to get around Ryan Schoenberg. Schoenberg doing a good job, up 10 spots himself. Nolan Scott up 17 spots. Nobody quite at the 19 that Logan Clampett has done, but it's a good pack of big movers here, drivers who have really worked through the field together.
That's always great to see, especially through the first 27 laps. The sort of improvements these guys have already made, especially Logan, is a little bit more than impressive as they come to log another lap. And well, Clampett's not done fighting just yet. We've sort of seen this from him all season. Not really had the greatest qualifying, so we're getting used to and accustomed to this 46 car running his way through the field, as he's going to just about get up to the back of Michael Guest, going to look down to the inside, down the Nellis straightaway, and in towards corners number 3 and 4. He's going to throw it down to the white line. He's going to make that one, I think, look easy as he comes off the corner. That 46 is hooked up, but no, on the top, Guest is going to try to keep it up there and keep something happening.
Guest really wound it up on the outside of the racetrack, and again got that big run coming down the hill in those 20 degrees of banking. Doesn't feel like as much of a drop-off as the advantage is in turn 2, just because obviously in 2 you're coming onto the straightaway. Turn 3 and 4 a little bit more laxed coming off because you head into that tri-oval. But the 54 was able to make it work nonetheless, and he works up on the top side of the racetrack right now. The 46 of Clampett really trying to get the inside to work. Looked like he might have clipped the apron that time. Got the left side tires down a little bit too low. That bobble is going to allow Guest to clear him and, for the moment, maintain P11.
We saw this back at ISM Raceway, where you really had to set up a pass, wait for a couple laps, really get that run into the corner, and get the run off. It might take you 3 or 4 laps to do so, but I think that's really what we're seeing here with some of these drivers throughout the field. Michael Guest and Logan Clampett. Clampett trying to make that move on Guest, and Pip Grass is there as well. Might take him a couple of opportunities, Evan, to get to the inside and really work away on that 54, but if anybody's going to make the inside work, you better believe it's going to be Clamp Nation and Logan Clampett as he continues to work his way towards front.
And then you can see the 54 even struggling with the handling a little bit as it walked up the hill a bit there in the center. The best thing Michael Guest can do is put a car in between he and Logan Clampett, and not all that far back off of the 55 of Brian Schoenberg. Very easy to tell where Schoenberg is. That black car with those bright yellow numbers working on the inside of the racetrack. But the 54 really liking up top. Even when he's not side by side, Randy, really liking to wind it up top. He gets a big run, gets to the back of the 55 machine right here, and he'll go and make it a fight for the 10th spot.
It's one of the things that's so great about this racetrack here at Vegas is they're going to go wheel to wheel coming off of corner number 2, and on the 54, I guess, not quite able to like the bottom, but it's just so awesome the way the banking works, and there's a couple of awkward bumps on the entry into one in particular that will often make drivers move up to that middle or upper groove. It's not often you see the third groove work, but the 54 of Michael Guest is doing a good job of it. He continues harassing that 55 car as they work themselves towards corner number 1, and Clamp is just sitting there watching and waiting, hoping that something can open up for him.
And right now, these drivers just can't seem to get away from one another. They're all on top of each other, four-way battling. You see not all that far back out of the rear end there, the 11 machine of Colton Davis right there as well. This is kind of how it is throughout the field. As you see the 29 machine of Pipgrass go to the inside and basically fan him out 3 wide with the 46 of Clampett in the middle there. The 29 can't stay down low. Now the crossover move again. Guest likes the exit off of the top of the racetrack, brings the speed all the way down the front stretch, but then he's on the inside at the opposite end of the racetrack, and he doesn't like being down low. He likes being up top, and that's why he's been struggling to complete this pass at the 55 of Schoenberg, because Schoenberg uses the top side to his advantage at that end of the racetrack, and it keeps them side by side.
Yeah, Schoenberg trying to get that run off of the corner to complete that pass or keep that pass from happening. Guest trying to use a little bit more real estate coming up into corner number 4, and it's going to open the door for Logan Clampett on the inside of Brian Schoenberg. Looks like Guest may have this pass completed, and now Clampett goes to work. 2 of the Chaos crew going at it for a spot, and Logan Clampett wants a little bit more too as he tries to get to the inside of Michael Guest. They run down the back straightaway, Pipgrass there as well. Some great little battles, but one thing to keep in mind, Taylor Hurst is on the move. He's up to position number 4, and Derek Bordeaux trying to unlap himself. He's trying to get past Brad Davies. Brad Davies putting up a little bit of a fight as well. So there's battles all over this racetrack as we continue on. There's Bordeaux trying to get by that 13.
All of that continues on. You see in front of it, the unit of David Rattler thought about trying to get to the inside of Taylor Hurst. Wasn't really able to do so. There's still a couple of car lengths in between them, but at least the Oneida machine flashed the nose at the bottom of the racetrack, letting him know that he's there. Again, these cars, though, have a couple of car lengths in between themselves, and no real immediate battles for position. That 04 still there, but again, that is not a battle between 2 cars on the lead lap, and the busyness continues behind us. The 29 of Ishida Pipgrass and the 11 of Colton Davis fighting. Logan Clampett has been absolutely harassing the 55 of Schoenberg. So 11th through 14th last time by, only 3/10 separated this whole group. Throw a blanket over him down the Nellis straightaway.
I saw that double 5 coming off of corner number 4 last time through. The 46 had a huge run, and I think pretty much Logan just didn't really have anywhere to go with it. Couldn't quite make something happen. So I'd really keep an eye on this 46 car. I don't think he's done moving just yet. We know after about 15-20 laps, the left rear tends to go away, and the car is going to get really, really slidey on you. With the 46 going to look down at the bottom, pulls a little bit alongside the 55, but not going to make anything of it. Hopefully he'll be able to get back into line, and Colton Davis will indeed let him up and through. So Logan wants this position bad, but Schoenberg not going to let him give it up easily.
And then the question becomes, Tim, how bad do you want it? Is it really working this hard, working this hard, I should say, to get that position now in the run, as opposed to maybe just working in line and not really eating away at those tires? Longest green flag run we've had of the night so far in effect, and at about 15 to 20 laps, we'll begin to take serious looks at drivers who are going to be headed down to the pit lane.
And if you continue to use your tires up, you might be looking a little harder at pit lane than some of the others might be up in front of the field as you ride on board with Colton Davis looking back. And it looks like behind him, most of those drivers are single file. A couple of drivers trying to pick up a couple spots here and there. Nick Ottinger in the back of that pack as well. I believe that might be Chris Overland back there in the yellow 47. So there's some drivers that are coming towards the front of the field. But as you mentioned, you don't really want to use up your stuff this early in the run. Our first pit stop was what? Lap 13. We're currently working lap 40. It's got a green flag look to it right now, so you might want to conserve a little bit now while you can. Try to set yourself up for a later run.
Looking at that 3 machine on the inside of the racetrack, the Simicube Chevrolet of Jarl Tien. as he tries to get around a group of cars. It is that bright 47 to Chris Overland. Very difficult to not see him, and the slow red car catching up on it. That is Matt Busa's got a lot of damage. Oh, the 42 rather with Dylan Duvall. I thought it was damaged from that incident earlier tonight. He is a lap down. You can see the front end damage. That's exactly where he ranked on a racetrack earlier tonight, down at 1 and 2. So that is the damage that he is working with. Has him significantly off pace. Last time by Duvall with a 31.7. So that puts him about a second and a half slower per lap than cars up to speed around him. So he's just doing his best to stay out there. I'm sure he'd like a couple of yellows to get some more service down pit road. That car's never going to get back up to 100%, but Duvall doing what he can. Going to be a long night for that team.
Really is. It's basically just going to be piddling around and hoping that some other people decide to call it quits to pick up some points, because right now he's the second to last running driver. Only driver he's ahead of is Jimmy Mullis, who's 23 laps down and decided to pull that car off the racetrack. But fights continue up and down here. The two Ray Alfala harassing Brad Davies, wanting to get in that top 5 spot. And it's been sort of interesting watching Ray Alfala here, because the last couple races we've seen Ray have some fairly good long run pace. Here seems to struggle through the middle of the run, but is super quick on the opening few laps. Seen that 2 car make moves in the first 5 lap window of the restarts a couple times tonight, and now we're starting to get deeper into the run. He moves down to the bottom on that 13 of Davies.
Davies has had his hands full, one of the drivers who seems to have not been able to catch much of a break tonight as far as just get somebody to leave him alone. He slices down, stays in front of the 2 of Alfala, and is able to protect that number 5 position. If you had a fast car in queue, though, you've had a fast car in the race for the most part. The majority of the drivers who started top 10 still running in the top 10. I think Taylor Hurst, though, wants another one as he lets the 04 machine go by of Derek Bordeaux. Taylor Hurst, the highest running driver in the field that did not start top 10, albeit he started in P11. So a little bit of a stretch to compare him to somebody like a Nolan Scott, who started 26th and runs in 9th position. But as we continue to close in on the pit stops, this portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Peak Antifreeze and Coolant, proud title sponsor of the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. I know you can take a look at all the intervals going across the top of your screen, but just an update, Keegan Leahy now almost 4 seconds in front of the next closest driver, putting on a show in the 24.
And you look at the battle that we just saw back there for position number 4. You had Taylor Hurst, who ripped his way up through the field from position 11, as you mentioned, up to that 4th place position. But since he got there, he hasn't really been able to drive away from Brad Davies. Davies keeping him in sights, and then Ray Alfala back behind them in position number 6, and got a great run off turn 2 that last time, but couldn't do anything with it. Still looking at the back of the 13 of Davies as you ride along with Ray Alfala. But yeah, Keegan Leahy is gone, but it seems like everybody else has kind of found their groove right now. It looks like Taylor Hurst got a great run off of corner number 4, and there goes Ray Alfala to the inside of Davies. They'll dance for position number 5.
But the third installment to this action we've seen in the last couple of laps, but this time he's got him. Slides high up and off of the corner, takes away that run off the banking from the 13 machine, and you can move Ray Alfala back into the number 5 spot. Might be short-lived, though. The 13 really trying to get down low on him. Real big bobble there, though, not going to work, and Davies will have to secede to the number 6 position. Again, Alfala started this race at 4th, though, so has lost a couple of spots, getting one of them back there to re-enter the top 5.
That's definitely one of the things that we've seen tonight. The ability for drivers to, when they get past, be able to fight back, Evan. Even if they have the disadvantage in the corner, they either try to work a cutback, get to that middle groove, or even slot up around the top side. We saw Davies try it, but unfortunately wasn't quite able to stick. And Alfala puts himself back into that top 5 position, and that red Deuce is showing some very good pace right now, lapping about a tenth to half-tenth quicker than most of the cars on the racetrack, and actually quicker than some of the other cars in the top 5 as well, by even more than that. So I think the next couple laps he'll have reeled in that 74 of Taylor Hurst, and will looking to put himself top 4, and then will be again setting his sights on Luza.
See if we can find the driver of that number 28 machine. Again, noted Casey Tucker is our RaceSpotTV featured driver for this evening. The SimuCube INX Racing driver, that number 28 Ford Fusion, has picked up a couple of spots since we last mentioned when he was running under caution flying conditions. He's back up to where he started this race in 23rd. Although Michael Conti in the 5 has something to say about that, trying to get to the inside of the racetrack, and you might have a battle on our hands. But the driver out of Douglasville, Georgia, one pole in his NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series career that came back in 2015 in Phoenix at ISM Raceway. He's raced in this series for 3 years. On the rear world side of things, has raced quarter midgets for a couple of years, legends, and of course some modified. So does have a nice observant and a sprinkling of real world experience for Casey Tucker. And again, a big thanks to him for letting us ride on board with him over the course of this race. We'll check in with him periodically as the night goes on, as he did end up losing those couple of spots. Conti takes 23rd from him, Kerwin takes 24th.
And look at the focus that he has around this racetrack, trying to track down that 14 car one more time. Great to see Casey Tucker, though, in this series, mainstay in here for these last couple of years. And I'm sure we're going to see a couple of top 5 runs out of him before this season is all said and done. A couple of cars coming down onto pit road at this point, as pit stops may have begun here for some of these drivers. Just to note, Ray Alfala, Nick Shelton worked their way past Brad Davies, and there's a driver that fell back a couple of positions early in this run, Evan. Nick Shelton now up to position number 6 and actually challenging Ray Alfala. Alfala hooked the apron there a little bit at a corner number 4 that last time. A little bit of a slide, and Shelton is there. Caution, though, is out.
Oh, race leader! Keegan Leahy is involved in this one, your race leader. That's him up on the outside of the racetrack in turn 2, and that was not of his doing. Caution flag is out. And it was problems with the number 3 of Jarl Tien. The 3 car into the 57, that car into the outside wall. The caution flag is out. You saw it there. Keegan Leahy, your race leader, already committed to the corner. Bang, takes that heavy shot on the right-hand side. Just wasn't able to get that car down the hill. You'll see Leahy come through into the picture. You're looking at the 3 again. Tien's into the wall. The yellow flag is out right now. Tien's doing a pretty good job of trying to hold this line. I just don't think Leahy was looking that far around the corner and absolutely smacked him. And your race leader of more than 4 seconds is taken out at an accident. And that is not good for the 24 as he tries to limp to pit road and see what the damage is.
Yeah, I have to say, I think that's a rookie mistake there from that 24 car of Keegan Leahy. When the yellow flies, you can't just keep your foot in it and keep going. You always have to be wary if there's an incident in front of you, and he really didn't slow down for it. He went into there at 170 miles an hour, saw that number 3, and then he jabbed on the brakes. When the yellow flies, you do sort of have to lift out of it, especially when you're the race leader and you're 4 seconds clear. It's not like he's trying to gamble something with the timing and scoring, so Jarl had no real opportunity to get down to the bottom either. There were other lapped cars that were coming, so he couldn't just peel it down to the bottom and get right out of the way of the racetrack. 24 Keegan Lee just needs to pay more attention.
I agree. I mean, Jarl Tien held it up top. I think for the 24, the biggest problem, Tim, was that he went in at full speed. By the time he realized Jarl Tien was there, he can't do anything. You lift out of the gas, you still can't turn the race car anymore. You get on the brakes, you're going to go straight up into the wall. And once he realized what was happening, he cranked it all the way to the left. At that point, it was simply too late. And the 24 machine involved in the accident. If there is any good news, it was that Keegan Leahy was able to maintain race leader position, although he has taken that car behind the wall on pit road. And we're going to have a new race leader. Ryan Luza going to leapfrog Zach Novak. He'll go 3rd to 1st. And in a wild change of events here, just past 1/3 distance from Vegas, we've got the 6 car now out in front, and Leahy gone.
Yeah, it's going to open the door for some of these drivers to potentially take away a victory, but you dodged one bullet maybe in Keegan Leahy, but how about Ryan Luza? Was so solid 2 weeks ago, won this race last year. So for those drivers that are trying to make their way from the top 5 maybe to the top of the scoring pylon, they've still got a couple of strong bullets to dodge up in front of the field, starting with that number 6 of Ryan Luza. Nolan Scott came off of pit road first. You saw it on the scoring pylon, but I believe he drove through pit road. He's coming back down, as is Derek Bordeaux, and the crumpled number 42 of Dylan Duvall going to also come down and get a little more massage work on that car. But Ryan Luza up in front. We talked about Keegan Leahy being strong, but now you're going to have to try and dance with Ryan Luza if you want this race victory.
And it obviously is going to change the dynamic up front. Leahy is back onto the pit lane. I thought originally that race car was just going to park it and his night was going to be done. If there's any positive, it was a glancing blow to the right-hand side. Obviously, though, still a hard hit. Could have been worse. Could have gone nose right in. But the right side of that car is really torn up. And, of course, you have to expect that if Leahy's still sitting down there, that he has, if not optional, but, of course, required repairs as well before that car is even allowed to get back out on pit road. He's not going to win the race. he can take the Dylan Duvall strategy of putting around for a little bit if he can get that race car back enough to where it will maintain a relative amount of speed and not be too much of a hazard on the racetrack. But there goes your hopes at winning another race. For the driver who earlier this season at Phoenix got a win, came into this race as your championship leader, and looked like everything was going oh so well. One mistake, a blink in an instant, and that could completely change the portion of not only this race, but of course, how the rest of this season may play out. That's how easy it is, though, to lose something in this series, and lose it now in a position to try to pick up the pieces. Couple of drivers in front of you, you're noticing all those drivers looking for wave arounds. Alex Bergeron, Christian Challoner, Corey Vincent are the couple of cars in between Luza and the pace car. They'll get waved around, I believe, here where the lights go out.
It's one of those things we talk about every year, isn't it, Evan? We see some drivers come out and they get out to an amazing start. They might win a race. They may have a couple string of best career finishes in this championship, and then you eventually see those drivers potentially making mistakes. It's been that sort of year thus far. The 24 Keegan Leahy won that race, of course, at Phoenix. It was a very, very fast at Fontana, and then looked like he was pretty much in control of this thing here. But one little mistake right there potentially can shift the entire momentum of an entire championship backwards. And now the defending champion and race winner from last week, he'll be bringing us to green after this lap under yellow.
Yeah, don't have any time to sit around and pout about it. We got to get back up and get going, so we'll update you on if Keegan Leahy is going to be able to get back out onto the racetrack. But your new top 5, Ryan Luza, like we said, finds himself in the race leading position. Taylor Hurst going to be second, then Zach Novak in third, Nicholas Shelton fourth, and Ray Alfala. Around out your top 5 for the restart, of course, full running order going up across the top of your screen. Pace car going to be in this time, only second restart off of a yellow that we've had so far this evening. It's going to come about 20 or so laps shy of being halfway home in tonight's contest, so we will see what the 6 machine of Luza can do on the front row, and he's able to get a good jump. He's in control on the inside. It puts the right foot down. American Ethanol. Green flag flies are back and away. 57 laps complete from Vegas, and Hurst goes to the bottom. Cut off the 50 to Zach Novak and defends P2.
Yeah, you're right about that. Went to that inside line, and Taylor Hurst going to maintain position number 2. Behind them, there's Ray Alfala. We've seen that red rocket a couple times be mighty quick on restarts. He's to the inside of Novak. Novak trying to peek to the outside of Taylor Hurst. Nick Shelton is a part of this battle as well, and behind them you got Rattler, and here comes Michael Guest looking to make a statement here this evening in Vegas. They come up out of 4, Luza leads, and it's a hornet's nest behind them.
You can see that too, way down on the inside, using the apron, and he will slice and split the difference behind Novak. And in front of that 12 is Shelton, so Alfala finds a home. The 12 car don't want to sit around though, crosses him up, and we'll see if we can go side by side for 4th. Not a lot of momentum in favor of the green and gray number 12 Chevrolet on the inside of Shelton, but he will drive it hard into the corner. He's got the Onada Rattler counting on him. He'll go 3 wide now as Rattler dives low off of the corner, and they'll spread him wide in the fight right now for 5th position. The question is, do they all hold it into the gas down to turn 1? Nobody backing out of it yet. Alfala now will drop out on the high side. Shelton in the 12 loses a little bit off, and it'd be if David Rattler could win this battle. He's got the advantage down the back. Alfala with a little bit of a nudge there helps the 12 along.
Las Vegas is normally associated with gambling, but the racetrack might soon become associated with 3 wide restarts from that number 2, because every single time we've gone green, Ray Alfala has been enjoying in part, of a 3-way fight one way or another, but out in front things are still heating up. And the 15 of Zach Novak puts a move on Taylor Hurst, and he's going to take that second spot away down the Nella Straight, and he's going to set his sights on Luza.
And loses the target up in front. It was a little bit more competitive, 2nd, 3rd, 4th on the back. Again, Leahy was the one with that big advantage of 4 seconds. Of course, we did see separation after nearly 30 laps, but these drivers were a little bit more on the pace with one another, and we'll see just how good the 15 lines up with Luza. The 6 going to go hot and take the arc into the quarter. He wants that higher line, again, to avoid those bumps in the center of 1 and 2. It's going to be the right call. Luza continues to lead. You can never count out Zach Novak. Your pole sitter from earlier on tonight has never dropped really outside of the top 4 in this conversation, and is now all over the 6 machine, trying to pressure early. Figures his best chance to get out to the race lead, to get it quick off of the restart. That way he can run things out, and on the longer end of the run doesn't have to worry about the tires falling off. While trying to be on the offensive.
Novak has been consistent within the top 5 as Pip Grass on the outside of Fayash. You saw that little battle going down into the corner, but The thing I'm interested in up front, we saw Keegan Leahy on the last couple of restarts go and get that huge lead. Ryan Luza pulled out from that battle for third, fourth on back. Ryan Luza's not pulling away, at least at this point, from Zach Novak and the rest of the field. We'll see if that plays out over, as you mentioned, a 20 or a 30 lap run. But right now, Ryan Luza has Zach Novak and has a rearview mirror full, and there's Novak trying to reel in that number 6 on this run as they come out of corner number 2.
Single file through the rest of the top 10, fighting just outside of it with the 29 of Brandon Pripgrass and the 77 of Andrew Fayash the third. That one's for 11th and 12th. You see the 77 on the inside of the racetrack. Fayash always talks about struggling with the qualifying runs with that team, and the 77 started this race top 10, so at a fantastic position. He's trying to at least maintain or not lose anymore. He had the 11th position at the start-finish line. And a photo finish with the 29 going to pull it back topside. And it might not just be that. Looks like the 14 of Kerwin, who's done a very good job, again, of recovering from his slide through the grass that did not yield a yellow. And that cost him a ton of track position not all that long ago. You're on board with the number 14 Appa Ford. And he's done a good job of working himself back into the conversation. Not on top of having already done this. He started this race in 36. There's the move to the inside. That sent him into the grass last time. This time it works as he goes side by side for 11th.
Fantastic move there by the 14 of Casey Kerwin. Good to see the bravery, even after that catching him out, to be able to throw a move like that again, and he's going to try to make it 2 cars in about a lap. He's going to end up actually backing out of it there. Going to let Brandon Pipgrass take the preferred line in towards 3 and 4. But good to see Kerwin making some fantastic moves as they continue to fight hard here, and Alfala still hands his full as well. He's fighting the 11 of Colton Davis.
Davis in another position again where trying to get that little bit extra step up and kind of get out of the rut that you're in. He made up a lot of spots early, up 7 where he runs now, but it is not very easy to work yourself around that number 2 of Alfala, who, again, he himself is technically in the negative after starting this one top 5. Very competitive action since the start of this race. Guest, again, really likes the outside of the racetrack. If you on it over the 54s, look up top, and you'll probably see him in that Toyota Camry. So everybody's figuring out their own little line around this racetrack, and especially as we get longer into the runs tonight, later into this race, more rubber's going to get put down on the racetrack, opens up a few more options.
And for the most part, throughout the top 10 right now, these drivers have found a place to race. You look back around 15th or 20th, right around where Chris Shearburn is running, you start to see a little bit of that side-by-side battling. Alfala comes up at a corner number 4. Davis going to take a look to the inside. There's some 3-wide racing as well coming out of corner number 4. There's Shearburn, there's Richardson, Casey Tucker. Is that Logan Clampett there as well? Nick Ottinger. There's some big names battling in the middle of this pack, and it's about the middle of the field. That's around 20th place right now as Tucker gets a little bit wide at a corner number 1 and 2, and he'll get that run down the back straightaway, and you can see him work from his simulated cockpit. Is Logan Clampett right behind him trying to make something happen as well.
He's got a big smile on his face as well as all of that was going on. I think he's enjoying the fact that he's in front of everything that's happening. The 3-watt is behind him real tight with that one of Marcus Richardson pinched in the middle there. 16 Mission Olin Scott up top, the 36 of Chris Shearburn on the bottom. Nobody really backed out of that one, and he'll go from 3 wide to 2 by 2 off of the corner as that 04 machine slices down to the inside of the racetrack. That's Derek Bordeaux, who, by the way, is still a lap down. He is the first car lap down, so if there were to be a yellow, you get the lucky dog, get back to the lead lap. But again, remember that 04 Ford is not a part of this battle on the lead lap, just adds an extra element into all of the chaos.
We know that he wants to get that lap back and is probably hoping for a caution, watching these guys out in front of him fight like this. That 04 machine is fast. We saw him up at the front of the field early. It's a little bit of bad luck, put him on the wrong foot, and, well, what was a 3-wide fight for a little bit just got itself a single file relatively quickly. Kind of interesting how quickly that fanned out, but one car we've been watching a lot of tonight, the 54 Michael Guest, who is harassing the 2 of Ray Alfala, who continues the trend tonight of going backwards at the right after the restarts.
And that's not a habit you want to get into. Obviously, everybody knows right off of the restart, you got to turn it up a little bit because that might be your best opportunity to rip the Band-Aid off and maybe work those tires a little bit more, just get the position done. You're not going to have any other opportunities over the course of the run to be that close to as many other drivers, and maybe for somebody like Alfala who would rather plan a long-term run, a long strategy here, hope that this one goes green maybe. Give a sign of green flying pit stops, doesn't really want to go all out early, save that advantage for a little bit later on in the run, but he has fallen now to the number 8 position. No changes up front, still losing Ovac and Hurst, 1, 2, and 3 on track. Stand by that. A lot of the fun still mid-pack in all of this thing. Good battle right now with Casey Tucker, the 28. I think he might have caught the wall that time at a 2. Logan Clampett's going to get on upon him. All in for 16th and 17th position. Same big pack we were just looking at, and they're going at it again.
Michael Conti on the outside trying to pick up a spot as they work down the front straightaway. And Conti was involved a little bit earlier on when Dylan Duvall came down the racetrack, had a little glancing blow with the 42. Great to see him rebound. We talked about Casey Kerwin a little bit earlier. That 5 car had a little bit of pedaling to do as well, and it looks like he's done so, at least up to the top 20. We'll see if he can get that forefront number 5 a little closer towards the front of the field. Blake Reynolds behind him having a good show as well, and there's Nolan Scott and Chris Shearburn at the top of your screen going side by side. 2 veterans of this iRacing and this sim racing simulation going at it down into corner number 1. Great to see them both having great runs here tonight at Vegas. But as you mentioned a little bit earlier, Ray Alfala in the 2 car, Michael Guest putting him under fire. Guest to the inside right now. We talked off the top of the show, does experience help here at this racetrack? Maybe Ray Alfala and that slip angle team put that long run setup in there thinking, okay, we're going to get a long green flag run here, as this race has shown in the last couple of years. But it looks like right now they're still waiting for that green flag run. They get everything they can on those restarts, then fall back a little bit, lacking a little short run speed. But I think if we do go green, that red rocket, that number 2, will get a little bit closer towards the front of the field.
And that's the objective again, to be able to work yourself through almost halfway home in this one, working lap number 76 of 167. And you're taking a look at your race leaders, Zach Novak and Ryan Luce, one of the closer battles still anywhere inside of the top 5 or so. Only 0.3 of a second separate them. And again, you can see as the run goes on, drivers develop very different lines. Luce's opted to go way up on the outside of the racetrack, the Michael Guest line, if you will. The 54 is somebody else who we've seen way up there. And speaking of Michael Guest, he wants another spot. He'll actually go, though, to the very low side. And on the inside of Ray Alfala, make it a side-by-side fight for 8th.
Every time we look at these guys, it seems like they've swapped positions. We've seen the 2 inside of the 54, the 54 inside of the 2. We've seen both of them try high and both of them try low, and they just can't seem to get away from one another. As Ray Alfala is going to try to get clear up top. He does for a moment, but that short line advantage comes back in favor of the 54, and actually Ray is going to just about get him clear, and it does. They move down the back straightaways, and ahead of them, Colton Davis is making a move on Brad Davies and towards corners number 3 and 4. So towards the tail end of your top 10, fights are heating up all around.
And maybe a little bit of sense of urgency picking up as you see those side-by-side fights continue. The 13th Bishop Davies is going to be able to get up in front of and clears Colton Davis, so stays there in a fight for 6th and 7th position. We do have at the moment 29 cars total still scored on the lead lap. At about 36, 37 cars on track. Keegan Leahy, by the way, told you we'd give you an update. The 24 is now back on the racetrack after being involved in that accident with the RLT and technically under the caution flag. Your race leader at the time of the Phenom Racing team is now running in 37th position and 15 laps down. The good news is that car's gotten fixed up pretty good. He's not getting obliterated on the time charts like I would have expected. He's still, 4/10 off of what he was doing before. Again, that car's not going to get back to where it was, but not all bad, and does stand a chance to maybe pick up some position, salvage anything he can out of a night that might end up being his drop come the end of the season. But just wanted to let you know, Leahy back on track, 15 laps down, 37th position.
And we've still got, over 80 laps to go. There's still some time. Should something happen between a couple of these drivers and a couple drivers drop out, there's a couple of extra points that he can pick up on that one. The 11 and 13 continue to go at it. There's Davis now to the inside of Davies, and Davies will try to get back at it again as Colton Davis in that number 11 made that crossover move. Davies now to the outside, and it'll get close quarters off of corner number 4. Davies will fall back, and as that happens, here comes Ray Alfala, the 2 car, going to go to the inside and try to pick up one more position. And as these guys continue to battle, it's about 5 seconds behind your leader, Ryan Luza, as the 2 dances up the racetrack a little bit, gives the 13 a little room to operate, and they'll drag race down the back straight.
And then now straight away they go to turn number 3. The 2 car on the inside of the racetrack, 13 up on the outside. There's the 54 of Michael Guest. Larky to the back up on the outside of the racetrack as well. This group continues to fight the 54. Looked like he wanted to go low on Davies. The 13 started to come down the hill, so he yanked that car up the racetrack. Quite the change of the wheel, if you want, loosen that race car up off of the corner, and it all works out, and he'll end up getting the position. But Davies lost a little bit of speed the last time through 3 and 4, and it'll cost him 2 spots.
Definitely not going to like that, but Michael Guest driving a loose race car, really not surprised. We've seen him in a lot of the Red Bull Global Rallycross content that's recently released on The Sims, so he's grown quite accustomed to going sideways, and we've seen as well in the Dirt Super Late model. So number 54 car, maybe learn something in the offseason with some of the new content that's released. The 13 of Davies is going to go down to the bottom, take the fight back to that 54 Michael Guest.
Guest and somebody else who has, again, been able to get those spots early too. We've had a couple of drivers like that. Colton Davis has gotten a couple more on this run, but somebody like a Michael Guest started 16th, runs in 8th. He's made his way halfway to the front, but a majority of those positions that he gained were very early on in those first 2 runs. The quick yellow after about 11 laps, and then the longer one there. Made up most of those spots. That has been rather stagnant since he's been able to get into the top 10, still searching for that little bit extra.
And he's a driver that knows there's still about half of this race left to go. There's lots of laps left, and he'll be able to push his way towards the front of the field when this is all said and done. Michael Guest will be there, and he's a driver that's been involved in iRacing for many years, working his way up through the ranks, and as Randy mentioned, doing a lot of other things outside of the Class A, the Cup Series car, and does a very good job at it too. So great to see him finally up here in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series and doing a great job within the top 10. Alfala continues to chase down Davis in the 11. That would be the battle for 6th. Give a call out to David Rattler, Nick Shelton as well in this run, 4th and 5th place as they continue to work around this racetrack. And I believe, Evan, Derek Bordeaux may have called it a night. Bordeaux in the garage area, 5, now 6 laps behind the pace. I think that team may have pulled that forward into the garage area for the night. Put the car cover on it.
Yeah, he brought that car down to the pit lane to get into the box, and that car has not come back out. They retired it behind the wall, and we will see if there is anything else to come from that story. Just checking it. It does appear that that driver has officially retired from this race. Good news for Keegan Leahy. He gets 1 more point. If he's able to complete the next 6 or 7 laps or so, he'd go from 37th to 36th position. It's the small victories in life that you have to keep note of. So, again, starting to see some drivers drop out of the race here and there. There's still plenty going on up front. Again, you're watching out the front end of Andrew Fayash, who has since lost an additional position since we last checked in with him. Kerwin was able to get around him, and so was Davies. I believe Overland's 47 may have been the driver that was able to get around him most recently. You see that yellow car 2 car lengths now into the horizon. Overland into the top 10 for the first time this evening.
That shouldn't really be a surprise that some of these slip angle cars are starting to get up to speed, as Fayash is now going to be dealing with the 66 of Blake Reynolds in his mirror, and Fayash may not be quite up to the speed that he would be liking just yet. You see out in front of him, they're going to be side by side, Davies and Casey Kerwin. So different points of the run for everybody. Some guys have mid-run cars underneath them. Some people are going to be a lot better on the long run. Because of that, we're starting to see different teams, different drivers start working their way forward.
And now that we have passed the halfway point in tonight's race, let's take a look at our iRacing, the midway race break, brought to you by our friends at iRacing, the leading online racing simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks from all around the globe. And in the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is your one-stop shop for online racing with visually sanctioned series by the likes of NASCAR and many more. 91 laps now on the board, and Ryan Michael Luza is your race leader from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway in front of pole sitter Zach Novak, who sits second. Taylor Hurst runs third, with David Rattler and Nicholas Shelton rounding through the top 5. Ray Alfala is 6th, and then a whole host of big movers. Michael Guest in 7th, Colton Davis at 8th, Brandon Pickrass at 9th, and Chris Overland 10th, all started outside of the top 10.
We've got an excellent battle for position number 11 right now. Brad Davies and Casey Kerwin going at it, and those 2 drivers the last time at corner number 2 were both sideways. Kerwin going to pick up the position. Davies going to fall back to position number 12. Blake Reynolds in 13th, Andrew Fayash in 3rd and 14th. Logan Clampett has made his way up to position number 16. Chris Shearburn's in there as well in position number 14. Nolan Scott in position number 17, closing in on Clampett to try to pick up that position. And behind them, you got Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg, Team Conti up there in 18th and 19th, and Nick Ottinger rounding out your top 20.
And while they're in the middle of the field, every time they go by a timing beam, they update and change the running order on Tim. It's a little bit more single file in the rear of your field. Casey Tucker, 21st, Ryan Lowe, 22nd, Marcus Richardson, 23rd, Cody Vyeth in 24th, Casey Kerwin in 25th, who's actually down on pit road. So interesting things happening there. He's following Phil Diaz, as well as Bobby Zielinski, Jake Sturgios, Timmy Hill, Adam Gilliland, and Alex Bergeron round out your top 30.
And then continuing with the drivers a lap down. Well, a lap down in 31st position is Christian Challoner. A lap down with him is 32nd Corey Vincent, and 33rd for Matt Busa. Dylan Duvall with the front end damage is 2 laps down. He'll drop a couple more before this race is done. Again, that car's still off pace, but he's 34th. Then you'll find Joe Letterello in 35th position. He is 9 laps down. Derek Bordeaux out of this race has currently scored 36th. Key Leahy completes 4 more laps. He'll pass him in the standings, but for the moment, Bordeaux 36th. Keen Leahy 37th, the final driver on track. He got Jarl T in 38th, and actually Jimmy Mullis has just returned to the racetrack. He is 67 laps down in 39th position, and he will round out a look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you visit iRacing.com to sign up today, and if you go to iRacing.com/membership. You can get a couple of looks of some exclusive promo codes if you're signing up for a first-time iRacing subscription. 40% off all new memberships. So get more information on that at iRacing.com/membership. Race leaders close it in on lap number 100, and pit stops are on the horizon. We'll step aside for a moment, get a word with our friends over at the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series about the youth movement on the real world side of things. We'll come back. Pit stops coming up next. Ryan loses in front.
Things can get rough out there.
The bumper to the back of the 24!
You think you got the brass?
I proved it last season.
That was last year. Now we've got young blood ready to take out the old. Start your engines. It's time to race.
Back live from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That's your race leader. You saw coming off of the corner there. It's Ryan Luza in front. We're working just past the halfway point in tonight's race for the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. 4th round of the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. And Luza had a little bit of a tight squeeze there. Not for position, though. He's 4.6 seconds out in front of the field as we get set to take lap number 100. After that, you're with us on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Evan Pasoko, Tim Terry, Randy Cheneth upstairs with you, and Tim Luza all of a sudden with the sudden absence of Keen Leahy, who was in the exact same position about 40 laps ago, way out in front of the field. Fastest car on the racetrack was involved in an accident with Jarl Tien after the yellow flag came out. Hit Tien, who was stationary on the track, who was involved in the accident. Leahy has since obviously lost the race lead, heavily damaged, and Luza has very well filled that void. Had a lot of contest right off of the restart, but now he's all on his own out front.
We've had a number of drivers visit pit road, including David Rattler that you see on your screen. Zach Novak, Taylor Hurst have also come down pit road. Ryan Luza, Nick Shelton, Ray Alfala, Brandon Pipgrass, and Michael Guest stay out on the racetrack, as there goes Jake Sturgis, former Vegas winner 2 times, over to the outside, and he'll unlap himself from Ryan Luza. But when you look through this field, we talked earlier that 2 pit stops might be faster than 3. We went green just prior to lap 60, so these tires that Ryan Luza has on his car are about 40 laps old. As some of these drivers already have come on to pit road, we talked about 2 being faster than 3. Is 1 pit stop faster than 2 at this point going to the end?
Well, this comes into the conversation we had a little bit earlier, Andy, as well, about how do yellows play into effect, and I don't think they've changed things all that much. Early yellow, 10 laps in, didn't make that big of a difference, and well, yes, we did get a yellow not that later, about 35 laps into that next run. We were so close to pit stops that I still think everybody is pretty much on a par with their number, and the one stop, splitting this one in half, might be the way to go, just based on the way everything fell, that first yellow flag, or the second yellow flag stop, I guess I should say, kind of fell into the window where you would have been thinking about one anyways.
I'm not sure if I am entirely on board with these guys have done with these early pit stops, because you can only do about 59 laps of fuel on a tank here, and normally you're going to run the fuel a little bit less than that. You're going to come down a little bit sooner simply for the tires. So for these guys that have come down pit road the last 5, 6, 7 laps, I don't think they're going to be able to make it. So I don't see the logic of coming down early even for the new tires. One of those situations where you need to be able, you can make it to the end of the race on your pit strategy, and you don't want to have to come down pit road one extra time. So I think for all these guys, from when they went green, they should be able to hit about lap number 117 or so, get around that point, and then be able to make it to the end from there. Lap 107, 108, to be able to make it to the end from there. So I think for all these guys that have already come down pit road, they're setting themselves up for failure over this one, because I think they have to come again no matter what.
We'll see if that is going to be the case, of course, especially at this level of sim racing. Everybody's got people that they're chatting with as we're on board with Casey Tucker again. We've seen multiple times tonight as we've checked in with him that he's on the radio talking with the team, obviously, and fellow drivers, at times cracking a smile, having fun, but of course it's those guys on top of the pit box on the spotter stand for him that are going to be figuring out all that math and coming up with a strategy so that he can focus on what's going on track in the meantime.
Yeah, he's got the easy job, per se, of driving the race car. The guys that are on top of the box, as you mentioned, trying to crack those numbers and trying to see what the perfect formula is and whether it is a one-stop or a two-stop from our last caution flag. And as you mentioned, that lap 55, 60 mark probably would have been the time we would have seen the first pit stop from some of those drivers. So somebody's got the winning strategy here and somebody doesn't. We're in Las Vegas. You're going to have winners and you're going to have losers. We'll see how this all shakes out. Ryan Luza continues to lead. He'll run down the back straightaway and he'll put another lap, by the looks of it, on Keegan Leahy, who continues to hold on here and get whatever points that he can salvage out of that number 24 BRS car as they come out of corner number 4, and Ryan Luza will work towards the start-finish line and put another lap in the books. We're working lap 107.
And another big part of it is, of course, having your number, but Randy, as well, watching what the drivers around you are doing. I don't think Ryan Luza really cares if somebody that's already, outside of the top 20 is coming down pit road. We've seen a number of those drivers pit right now with only 14 on the lead lap. The real big thing he's looking for is for the guys up front to make that call. Shelton and Alfala, those drivers right up with him to make that call to come down pit road. He seems to be really just focused on himself at the moment, but I think if Shelton pits right from behind you, you'd have to respond to that, because he'll get out on fresh tires. You're talking about seconds per lap at that point.
But when you're also talking about Nicholas Shelton potentially not being able to make it to the end of the race, I don't think it's such a surefire thing. I think you need to sort of stick to your own information sometimes, and you basically have to do what you know is best for you. If you don't think you can make it to the end of the race from here, even if Nicholas Shelton pits or Ray Alfala, doesn't really matter who in the world pits behind you. If you want to be someone who gets to the end on only one more pit stop, you have to wait about another, I think, 3 or 4 laps until you're actually in that window, and then it's officially going to open. Like I said, about 58, 59 laps is what we're expecting on a fuel run here. We're sort of right on the edge of that now, so maybe from here on out, you might come down pit road if they do so behind you, but at the same time, stick to your own strategy. That's what won Luza a championship last season.
And you can see drivers already who have come down pit road started to interject into things. Nicholas Shelton just got passed by a lapped car. The driver just out the front end of him, that was the 74 machine of Taylor Hurst who got by. So drivers who have pitted, obviously, onto the fresh tires are unlapping themselves. Novak, Hurst, Rattler going to be the drivers who will get back to the lead lap this time by. So just to compare laps, for drivers who just pitted, Taylor Hurst last time with a 30.038. Compare that to Luza, who's the fastest car on track over the old tires, running at a 30.496. So it definitely isn't one of the biggest fall-offs that we've seen over the course of the season. Not going to be one of the bigger ones that we see all year long, but that's still there, and it's very noticeable now that you have a lot of those very fast cars catching up to the drivers who have yet to pit and are going substantially slower. So, as we move into the second portion of tonight's broadcast, it's brought to you by Herculiner Bedliner. The tough comes easy. Big thing is holding your breath here and hoping you can get through this, because when you've got that closing rate, things can happen in the blink of an eye.
And then you've got guys battling for positions like you see here. You got Michael Guest, Chris Overland, Blake Reynolds, Logan Clampett. Some of them are for positions, some of them are not. Some on fresh tires, some are on old tires. Got differing strategies throughout, and that's kind of where we get those hold your breath moments, as you mentioned, Evan. You get a couple of guys coming through the field on new tires and getting stuck behind some guys and maybe getting stuck in a position off a corner that they don't really want to be in. That's usually where the contact comes from, and that's where the caution flags come from. But right now, these drivers doing an awesome job as Overland on the outside of Fayash. Fayash will make the move to the inside, and he'll continue to reel in those guys in front of him. Ryan Luza continues to stay out on the racetrack. Nick Shelton, Ray Alfala, your top three. Chris Shearburn's in the top 5 as well. Great to see the Shearburn number 36 up there, and trying that strategy and maybe trying to get something for him as he's on pit road along with Michael Guest.
You see them head down to the pit lane, still waiting though on Luza to make that call, trying to stretch this one maybe as far as he can. Losing in, I think this time by is going to be 54 laps to go for Ryan Luza, trying to make it to the end of this one. And I think if you're talking about those numbers right there, should be possible to be able to, make it to the end if he's able to come down pit road. Now, of course, if you short pitted and pitted a little bit earlier on in this race, I think that might be a little bit more up in question, but I think that he's within a workable number, Randy, to be able to round this one out one stop, as you see Low now come in the 7.
I honestly think he's in the window here, and let's take a look. He's going to come down on pit road right here. So you're defending champion and defending winner in this series, one out at Fontana. See if he's able to make something happen to this as he slows that car down to about 50 miles an hour and cruises down pit road. Ryan Michael Luza wants to see if he can hit the jackpot here. I would not be surprised if he doesn't cycle out with the race lead simply because of the undercut, but I'm still sort of a little bit questionable on these guys. They're going for the double strategy. He's actually the 6, locked up in the box. He's going to throw away a lot of time. He hit the wall, and he's still not in the box. Big mistake from Luza.
This is not what you can afford. The 6 machine just came in too hot, missed it the first time, and then I think it was too far over to the left. He's finally going to be able to get that car into the box, but this is going to be an atrocious pit stop for Ryan Luza. Had a 4-second advantage when he came into the box, and I think he's going to go with the 4 tires still, Tim, so he sticks with his call, but that's going to really hurt the 6.
Yeah, absolutely horrendous stop, and I'm sure Ryan Luza is kind of kicking himself right now, but he blends back up into traffic, and he'll get back to business. You can't let that bother you as much as you lose a little bit of time sliding into the box, getting the wall a little bit, and then trying to caddy corner your way back into your box. You can't let that get to you. If you're a race car driver, you got to get back into the rhythm and try to click off some very quick laps. Zach Novak right now is your leader by about a second over Taylor Hurst, and we'll see where Ryan Luza shakes out through all this. But keep in mind, guys like Novak, Hurst, Rattler, Davis, Kerwin, they're all going to have to come back down pit road one more time by the looks of this strategy, as long as this thing stays green.
And one thing to keep in mind as well is, again, Luza wasn't going to come right back out of the pit lane and immediately go back to the race lead. Of course, I don't think he was going to fall to 17th position, so it is going to be a little bit difficult to track where would he have been. Would he have been where Alfala is at about 11th position or so? That's about a 6-second difference between he and Alfala. It could be about on the money with the amount of time that he lost on pit road by having to back up or so, but Luza was not going to come out and go right back to the race lead. So, well, it looks even worse than it was going to be again. As Tim had just noted, Randy, a lot of the guys up front going to have to cycle back down pit road, and of course drivers who may even be on the same strategy as Luza as far as one stop and now go to the end. They had short pitted a little bit earlier, so would have naturally just come back to him as their tires would have been more worn. So we'll follow Luza as he comes to the field, but no real positives to take away from running right now in what is 15th position as he got a few back.
Yeah, there's no positive result, I don't think. I mean, you have to think who would have been the race leader a little bit later on in this one. Well, who would be the honorary race leader if it goes green and those guys eventually come down pit road out in front of them? Likely be the 12 of Nicholas Shelton, and it would have been Ryan Michael Luza. You look where he is on the racetrack relative to those drivers. Darby had a 4-second lead on pretty much. Nicholas Shelton is going in towards corner number 1. Ryan Michael Luza is just crossing the start-finish line. So it's about 6 or 7 seconds that he's dropped compared to that number 12 car. And I have to say, I think right now as this race goes, I think that 12 of Shelton and as well as the 2 of Alfala are the 2 cars that are really in command of this thing if it goes green to the end. I just don't think the guys that are having to come down pit road and going for a second short stint on new tires, I don't think they're going to have enough time after getting the new tires to drive their way through the field and be able to make things happen.
And that's the thing, is you're going to have the tire advantage, but there's a fine medium, and there is no playbook on the exact right number to come down pit road. How many laps do you wait, and how many laps are you going to need to catch up? And if the racetrack is going to be different, obviously taking time off to come down pit road takes different amounts at each racetrack, depending on how long the pit lane is. Do you lose a lap at some tracks? Do you not lose a lap at certain tracks? And that plays a factor in drivers being reluctant to come down pit road, because we saw so many drivers a lap down when they started pit stops. If a yellow were to have come out at that point, which it did not, it would have been tracked a lap down. So that's why a lot of drivers play the conservative call, trying to stay out and avoid getting caught in something like that. But at this point, we do have pit stops still to come, but they are a little bit on the horizon. I think it's a waiting game now. I think you got to size up who you think is on the same call as you. Novak and Hurst, for example, only a second between the two. Right now, run 1 and 2.
And it's been a consistent second or a second and change, per se, between those two in the last 10 laps or so. They're running almost identical lap times. One will run a little bit faster than the other each lap. But you look back there, David Rattler, Colton Davis, Casey Kerwin, top 5, haven't really changed, and they're on that same strategy. And I really don't think you can let somebody else dictate your call. I think a lot of these drivers and a lot of these crews have their number picked out or around their number picked out of when they need to come back down to make their strategy work. Sure, you're going to see some drivers probably stay out and maybe try a different strategy, call an audible that might not necessarily be at the front of the field, that might not have a winning race car, to try to pick up a couple of spots at the end of this one. We've seen it earlier in the season, and I'm sure we're going to see it here if something does happen that a caution flag comes out in this last run. But right now, Novak, Hurst, and Rattler, your top 3 on that 2-stop strategy from our last caution.
And you've got, Colton Davis, Casey Kerwin into the mix. Logan Clampett is not all that far back off as well. The 46 was one of the bigger movers again from earlier in this race, but has been eclipsed by Kerwin, who, as we run now, is 31 positions in the positive. And remember, and if you've been watching since the start, made up a ton of spots, spun through the grass, no yellow, so he's had to do it twice. But you see him in 5th position right now and are up those 31 positions. He did that at least twice so far this evening, but the 46 of Clampett right there with him, so this could be a good battle in a couple of laps. Nolan Scott, Blake Reynolds, not all that far back as well. You see Lewis has been creeping forward. He was 13th there on that chart, so up 4 from where he was when he blended back out onto the racetrack, but he's still looking at a 15-second disadvantage to Novak P1 at the moment.
It's definitely unfortunate for these guys, but there's going to be something they pretty much have to be used to as they try to work their way forward. They know that there's a big time advantage, but the way the lap times are working out is pretty big. If you look at Ryan Michael Luther right now, 28.9 last trip around the racetrack. Zach Novak, a 30.4. So we're sort of approaching the window, I think, here, Evan, where these guys who are opting for this sort of short stint strategy, they need to wait about, I think, 10 to 15 more laps, and then they should be coming down pit road to try to give themselves a 30-lap or so window to try to reel in the likes of Ryan Michael Luza and potentially Ray Alfala. All those drivers are hoping to jump with the 2-stop call from when we last went back to green flag racing, because you have to give yourself an adequate amount of time on the other side of that pit stop to make up some positions and get your way move forward through the field.
And the question is, when is that ball going to drop? When do these drivers who still need to pit make that decision? This time by going to be 40 laps to go from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway for Zach Novak out in front. Even he's still working with lap traffic and a good significant number of it. You see the 8 machine of Adam Gilliland about to go 2 laps down. He runs in 31st. Alex Bergeron just came out of pit road, so that gray car to the left-hand side of your screen in 30th probably will not be caught by at least Gilliland. And maybe not Zach Novak either, because again, he's got that advantage of tires. And this is where you got to be keeping notes. Who's on what call, who's going to be where. I think that Luz is not in a terrible position, but still 3 seconds behind Alfala, who at worst is on the same strategy as him. Fayash into the mix as well. And here comes the 14 machine, just as we questioned when it's going to happen. Casey Kerwin in for the final stop on his night. He gives up P6.
Yeah, I think we'll see a majority of these two-stomp guys come in within the next 5 to 10 laps or so and try to maybe split up the run in between here and the end of the race as the 15 car continues to lead this thing at a corner number 4 as he'll come up and complete 129 on the racetrack. And looking back behind him, Taylor Hurst is closing the gap a little bit. It's now under a second. It's about 3/4 of a second between himself and Novak, but he's got a little bit of traffic to try to get through there, as you see just in front of him. I believe that's Bobby Zielinski and a few friends that are in between himself and the leader, Zach Novak, as they work down through corner number 4, and the 15 car will stay out on the racetrack this time, and he'll complete 130 on the racetrack.
Meanwhile, Kerwin was able to get safely in and out of the pit lane and didn't have, a big mistake like we saw with the 6 a little bit earlier on in this one. So he's back out on track, so that's why things have remained as such, and he's now a lap down. So that goes back to the question of, is it worth pitting in queue with your strategy, which also seems to just coincidentally line itself up with a little bit of risk now being trapped a lap down. Nearly half of the field of active cars that are running on the racetrack are a lap down. As you go inside of the final 40 laps of this race, this final portion of the broadcast is brought to you by Blue Def Diesel Exhaust Fluid, the #1 selling DEF in America. As we work lap 132 of 167, like Reynolds is down pit road from the top 10 as well. Close it in on the end around 4 of this 2018 campaign.
The big question on everybody's mind is, when do you come down pit road if you have to come down again? Because you want to come down pit road, and you need to do it early enough. And actually, some drivers are going to pull the trigger already. You see the 74 of Taylor Hurst on pit road. Also has a 9 car. That's Philip Diaz. He's running 22nd laps down, though. But it's that 74 car, Taylor Hurst, is the one that we're interested in, because you need to do it soon enough, Evan, that you don't allow the likes of Alfala and Luza and all those guys that are sort of on a one-stop right now to reel you in. But if you wait too long, you're potentially talking about not having enough time going on the other side and potentially letting them reel you in, because they were running about a half second per lap quicker than the driver that we saw come down early. But Zach Novak's going to come in, and the 12 machine of Nick Shelton is going to filter out in towards your race lead, with Ray Alfala about 0.2 of a second back.
And I was just seeing if they were going to follow suit as well, but Shelton going to stay out on track. You can see Alfala right there is going to become the battle for the race lead on track right now with the #2 machine on the outside. That's Alfala chasing down the 12. They'll catch up to the #1 machine. That is Marcus Richardson, who right now is the final driver on the lead lap. He will fall now a lap down in 17th position. But Shelton and Alfala battling for the race lead at a turn number 4 as we close it on 30 to go.
And if this thing stays green, I think you have to lay in the bed that you've made right now. The 12 of Shelton, the 2 of Ray Alfala are on that one-stop strategy, and I think they have to run it out until the end of the race. Ryan Luza 2 seconds back from Nick Shelton in position number 3. Of course, a caution flag would change all of this, and we've seen those late race cautions here at Vegas before, but we won't talk about that. We won't even look at that right now. Nick Shelton right now up in front and about 30 laps away from potentially his first NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series victory, but he's got champions behind him in Ray Alfala and the Ryan Luza machine, as there goes Phil Diaz to unlap himself from the 12 car, and got more company behind there. There's Taylor Hurst in the 74.
And Hurst going to come on through as well. He will get himself back onto the lead lap from 15th position. And 15 machine just on pit road, also easily going by the 12, who is your race leader. Again, this racetrack, same many different winners. 2010, Sandeep Banerjee for the first time ever. 2011, Brad Davies. Jake Sturgis won it 2012 and in 2014. Marcus Lindsay got a win in 2013, and in the last 3 years, Kenny Humpy in 2015, Corey Vincent in 2016, and Ryan Lewis a year ago in 2017, which looked like was going to be another one lined up for him tonight. Right now, though, in the 3rd position, again, really reeling over the big mistake he made on pit road. That's the difference between he and Alfala right now, that is significantly closed right now at about 1.5 seconds difference between the two. It was 4 seconds when they completed their service. The 6 machine may be trying to overcome it.
I think Luza's got the advantage. He came down pit road a number of laps before those 2 cars out in front of him. Not a lot, but enough that he's really, either that or he's got something in the setup that's allowing him to really push, because they all kind of came down within the same 2 or 3 lap window. I actually thought Luza had been out a little bit longer than that, but I was incorrect. But Luza is running about a 10th to a 10th and a half quicker than your top 2 right now, and every single time he comes by a timing beam, it drops another 10th of a second. It's down to a 1.5 seconds. The gap from that 6 car to Nicholas Shelton and Ray Alfala is sort of in the middle there, a few tenths back as well. So Luza, despite that big mistake on pit road, Evan, which I think he dropped somewhere in the realm of 7 to 10 seconds trying to get into his box, imagine where that 6 car would be if he gets into the box cleanly and rolls away and maybe leaves a second on the table instead of trying to push it. He'd be well and truly clear, and I think pretty much be guaranteed winner on this one.
Yeah, well, you had that 4-second advantage, obviously, so that helps out a little bit. That's a cushion to figure if he lost 8 seconds or so, he was 4 seconds behind Alfala. He was about 4 maybe in front of him before. That kind of works out, so the speed in the 6 car could be the difference maker here. I think at the pace that he's going, he will get to Alfala. The 2 machine, I'm sure, very aware of that the gap is now almost down to a second. Wonder if he wants to get up and deal with Shelton now, or if he would rather let Luza do his dirty work for him, because we're not that far away from a 3-way battle for the race lead here in Vegas.
We mentioned a couple of times here this evening that Ray Alfala has very good long-run speed. A little bit lacking on the short run, but if this goes a long run to the end of the race and these guys are on that one-stop strategy, Ray Alfala might have the better race car. But as Ray Alfala had that long run speed, Ryan Luza in that first run was up in front of him and pulling away a little bit. So we'll see if the tires kind of subside between the 2 that we are seeing here, between those few couple laps between the 12, the 2, and the 6 of Ryan Luza. But we've seen some short run speed out of the 6. We've also seen some long run speed out of Ryan Luza. We'll see what happens between him, Ray Alfala, and Nick Shelton. And oh, by the way, Shelton going for his first win. Do you think there's any nerves in the car of the number 12?
Well, he started this race in 8th, and a lot of it, Randy, we were talking about how he had kind of been under the radar. You know, a lot of drivers fluctuating, gaining and losing spots. He held his ground for a majority of this thing, and, you know, Alfala's had plenty of battles in this race. Luza has plenty of notable moments. Shelton, very calm and collected so far, but got a 3-time series champion knocking on the door, the defending series champion closing in on you, and all of that, you got to deal with lap traffic, you got to deal with a car that's going to be at the very end of a run by the time it gets down to this race. Not going to be a lot of tires left on it. There's a lot that Shelton's dealing with right now.
Thing to keep in mind is, some of those people that we saw go for the double stint strategy here at the end, are they able to make something happen and potentially reel them in? It's important to keep in mind those drivers are going to be tuning around this racetrack somewhere around the likes of a 1 to a 1.5 seconds quicker every single time through, so they're going to be making up a huge amount of ground very, very quickly in this one. And as we are approaching 20 laps to go, they might just have enough to get to you at the tail end of this race. So while it's looking to shape up to be a fantastic 3-way fight just right here, right now, from the 3 cars within about a second and some change of your race lead, it might get more cars tossed into a mix as we get closer to that checkered flag.
And closer we are. 2 laps for now, be 20 laps to go, and I think that's kind of the universal mark for the home stretch here in Vegas. By far, working on the longest green flag run of this race through a cycle. In fact, want to count the 2-stop strategy through 2 cycles of green flag pit service have led us up to this point. Nicholas Shelton, 145 down, 12 laps to go. You're looking out of the front end of Ray Alfala as he tries to close in on the 12. Luza, though, has not gained like he had been in the last couple of laps. Really stormed to that 1 second of a disadvantage. He's 1.3 off at the top spot as of the last time by. But the last few laps, he and Alfala have been a lot closer than they had been. You have to expect that. The tire advantage is going to go away and slide away as you get more laps on those tires. But you have to keep up at a rate at which you would catch that second, within the next 20 laps or so. Alfala's 3.15 countered with a 3.09 by Luza. That is not fast enough. You can see him lurking as you watch the top 2 come down the backstretch.
And you talk about the tire advantage weighing out throughout the run. Looking at Zach Novak's times, he was the driver that was ahead on that two-stop strategy. He's sitting back in 13th place right now, about 24 to 25 seconds behind. He's gaining 4 to 6 tenths a lap, and with around 20 laps to go and a 24-second disadvantage, he's going to need these guys up in front or right behind him, as you just saw there, to really get at it and get battling in order to gain some time, because that tire strategy is going to even out closer to the end of the run. I don't think the two-stop strategy is going to work, but we've also seen some weird finishes and some cautions and what have you strategy at the end of these races too. So it's not over, but I think these guys up in front, if this stays green, have the upper hand.
No doubt that they're in a very good position now. You have to wonder, though, if Luza wouldn't mind if we had another go at this thing, because, again, not getting the closing rate that it needs. I think Alfala's there. Is Alfala sitting back? Is he waiting on Shelton, or is he giving it everything he can? And these cars are neck and neck, because they have been those 3-4 car lengths apart for the better portion of this run since they assumed the top 2 positions.
I think the thing to keep in mind as well, Evan, is that when you think about that 6 car of Ryan Michael Luza, when he stormed out to that 4-second lead, he didn't do it after 20 or 30 laps. He did it somewhere around the sort of second half of the run, which got around somewhere around 35, 40 laps in. It was really that last sort of leg of the stint where he was just blisteringly quick compared to everyone else on the racetrack, and that's where that big advantage come in. He's reeled in another couple of tenths the last couple of laps, and let's see what this 1.5-mile trip around the racetrack goes. It's going to be a lap time of 30.349 for Nick Shelton and a 2:19 for that 6 of Ryan Michael Luza. So I think we might be getting back into the phase where that number 6 car is super quick here at the end of the run. I don't know if the 12 and the 2 car, if Luza is able to get there, are going to be able to hold him off.
Well, the big thing you got to keep in mind as well, Tim, is that catching them is one thing, but completing the pass is another. We talked about the progressive banking at the top of the show. 12 degrees down low, 20 degrees up top. This racetrack is very racy. Drivers have been spreading them on in the quarters all night long. We've seen some fantastic back and forth side-by-side battles. You bet that if Ryan Luce is able to get back up there to Ray Alfala and Nicholas Shelton, that they're going to make the back end of those race cars as wide as they can.
And they're going to go through some traffic as well, which is really going to affect this battle up in front for the lead with Shelton, Alfala, and Luza. And I think, Ryan Luza, if you are the driver of the 6 car, after that pit stop malfunction, I think you really had to dig deep a little bit and use a little bit of those tires. Nick Shelton, Ray Alfala, they might have been riding a little bit. Maybe they're saving something for the end of this race, but we're coming down to it now. Whatever they have to lay on the table. The turn is here, the river is coming, and Nick Shelton trying to win his first NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series race, but he's got those 2 champions behind him. So we're going to see a showdown here at Vegas as they come out of corner number 4.
He is 15 laps away from locking it up. Ray Alfala, the driver who traces his every move, yet to get a win so far. In 2018, we've seen Ottinger, Leahy, and Luza. 3 races, 3 different winners to this point. Looked like Leahy had it lined up for him. An accident took him out of it. Looked like Luza had it lined up for him. A self-inflicted error on the pit lane may have taken him out of it. Still trying to make the Hail Mary push late in this one, but it may be another first-time winner. The question is it going to be first on the year for Alfala or first ever for Shelton?
Could very well end up being both if Shelton ends up taking it home, and he's doing a very good job up there as we're approaching 10 laps to go. He's got a lot of experience, like we've been talking about, behind him, hounding down him, really putting a lot of pressure, and he looks like a seasoned veteran out there in that race lead. All white number 12. I'm sure that he wouldn't be the greatest fan of that, but as it worked themselves through the tail end of this lap here, coming towards the end of this one, approaching 10 laps to go, Shelton's just happy to get that lap counter closer and closer to 167 complete.
Working with that 21 machine, the 12 try to minimize the impact that the lap car has. Cody Bias is going to go all the way up to the top of the racetrack, but he'll be side by side with the 2 of Alfala by the time they come off of the quarter. Might have hurt Ray just a little bit as he was trying to close in and finalize and get in a position to make the pass now. Again, you have to keep in mind, Luza's now going to have to get around the 21 and the 11, and that side-by-side lap traffic, not what he wants to see next time around. Going to be 10 laps left to go from Vegas. Shelton still in front, but the margin gets ever so closer, 2 car lengths back to the 2 car.
I think the one thing Ryan Luza wants to see is that 11, though, of Colton Davis. But does Davis want to get involved in this battle for the lead? He's got fresher tires. He wants to unlap himself, currently sitting in 16th place, and he's closing in on those two in front of him. Question is, does he get into that battle for the lead and try to unlap himself? He already passed Ryan Luza. Luza has got past Cody Bias, so now whatever happens in front of him will happen. Want to give a shout out as well to Chris Shearburn. Shearburn is running in fourth, and Shearburn is closing in on the leaders. He's going to run out of time, though. He's clocking off about a 10th or 2 a lap. He's about 3 seconds behind in position number 4, but man, oh man, what a run for Shearburn tonight.
Having a great run after starting in 39th position. We mentioned Michael Conti's had a great night. He's up 30 spots in 7th. You got Ryan Lowe up 25 positions in 13th. And at the top of it all is that plus 35 for Chris Shearburn, who made the right call, trying to stretch this one out to the end, who runs in the number 4 position. The one thing we have to keep in mind, as always, as you see 9 laps left to go on the top left-hand side of your screen, is the point at which this race is going to end on the next flag. And inside of the final 4 laps to go or less, a caution would end this race. There is no overtime feature. In the iRacing service, we race at 167 laps, no more and no less. We know the distance. So if you're Alfala, I think you almost have to consider this race to be more so at 5 laps to go, Randy, because I would not risk it sitting back and waiting to those final 4 laps to make my move. I want to get it done, and I want to get it done now.
Ray, I'll follow, though. You want to try to pick up on some momentum. You've had some good finishes. You want to try to keep that going. Do you go for a risk of trying to make a move and potentially getting caught up in an incident and coming away from here with no points? Or you just take maybe the veteran's approach, the well-thought-out and patient approach of going for just that good points result? It's going to be sort of up in the air. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that number 11 car, whose laps down, is still there and is really making things difficult for these drivers. He's harassing your race leader right now, going to slot himself around the outside. This is allowing Alfala to potentially close the gap. And look at that, the 6 machine of Luza, he's reeled in a lot of speed the last couple laps. He's suddenly hooked up. Ryan is there.
He was all the way on the apron that time. 3 cars in a line. A race win in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series is on the line. 6 laps to go. Alfala looks high. The 12 goes all the way up to the wall, traces him down to the inside, and still no advantage to either driver. Luza, though, way up the hill. He's got a big run at it, too. To the bumper, he tries to go low. Alfala's going to go low as well, and we're going to go 3 wide for the race lead as the 6 tries to pinch it down. He can't do it as Alfala stays in front, and here we go now. 3 wide for the race lead. There's contact between Luza and Alfala, and the 6 car hangs on.
And now he's going to have to reset himself and trying to get up here and make one more move. Nick Shelton dodged a huge bullet with Colton Davis going by, Ryan Luza closing in, and Ray Alfala nipping at the back bumper. Ray trying to bait the 12 to go up high, trying to bait him to go down low, trying to make a move to try to fake that number 12 as Shelton out, the rookie trying to get his first win. And oh, by the way, here's that run from Ryan Luza on the back bumper of Ray Alfala. Alfala holding him off so far. This is looking good for Shelton up in front.
The more they fight for second, the less they can focus on the 12 car up front. Alfala noticed that 6 car has been going high in 1 and 2, tries to do the same thing, but there's the undercut. Luza goes low halfway through the corner, and it is going to be Sada by Sada for second, but he wants to go for the race lead as well. He'll take the inside line all the way up next to the 12 is Shelton, and he's got it. Ryan Luza to the race lead at 4 laps to go. It is far from over, but a beautiful move to get 2 spots at once.
Doubted him the entire point of this run, wondering if he would have the speed, but with the 4-second lap advantage that he had earlier on, should we have ever done so for Ryan Michael Luza? He's coming to just a couple of laps left. There's a lot of traffic out in front, though, that he has to navigate.
The 6 machine's got a gap now. The 78 is in between, but he has a lot of lap traffic to deal with on his own. The 9 car's going to get out of the gas and get out of the way, but Corey Vincent, Colton Davis, Bobby Zelensky, Jake Sturgis are all on the doorstep here, and the 6 machine is still not completely free of Alfala and Shelton. The 12 of Shelton did fall to 3rd. Alfala's got 2nd, but hold your breath for the 6 of Luza. He's pinched in now, stuck behind the 83, and the 78 on the inside. That'll bring Alfala right back to him as the 6 car's struggling to find a hole.
They're going to come up this time at a corner number 4 and see the white flag final lap. The only thing Alfala can hope for, Evan, is that 6 car to get boxed into traffic. Sturgis on the outside. Chalner's a little bit quicker. Alfala's got to get up on the wheel here if he wants it.
Lap traffic somewhat out of the way up on the outside of the racetrack. He's got a clear shot to Luza, but a 4-car length disadvantage, I think, is going to be too much. And Ryan Luza had this one locked up, made a big mistake on pit road, and the most spirited drive we've seen of the year is going to keep the 6 machine on top. He gets the pass with 3 laps to go, and he'll go back-to-back. Winner from Vegas, Ryan Michael Luza gets 2 wins in a row, backing up the win from Fontana 2 weeks ago with the check here tonight, and he makes an impressive statement. Thought he gave it away, but would not back down. Shelton so close to a first career win, and at the end of the day, it is Ryan Luza victorious in Las Vegas for the 2nd year in a row.
You're Nick Shelton, you can only be so disappointed that you lose a race with 3 laps remaining from 2 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series champions. So for Ryan Michael Luza, he's going to head out toward the front straightaway. He's likely going to burn them down, get a celebratory, some donuts going on here. But I think if you're Nick Shelton, you need to come out of here with your head held high. You had a fantastic run. You matched the pace of Alfala and Luza for the majority of this race. Luza just had something at the end of the run that no one else did. And when it clicked in there with about 6 laps left, I don't think anyone had a chance of keeping that number 6 car out of victory lane.
And it's easy to forget, Tim, that with the mistake Luza made, again, Luza was, I'm not sure how much so, but he was definitely the fastest car on track since we restarted this race for the final time, which proved to be a marathon. To the end of this one, he was in control, made that mistake on pit road, and that's what set him up for the spirited charge, and did not take anything away from that because it was very impressive to see the 6 time it, not want to give up and execute at the end of the day. But, you know, for Alfala and Shelton, if the 6 didn't make the mistake, you're talking about a race win by 8 or 7 seconds or so. So they took advantage of a situation, no doubt, but Ryan Luza proved that with the absence of Leahy there after that mistake earlier, he was the best car on track, and he deserved to get the win here tonight as he takes the Polish victory lap.
And we talked about pit strategy all night long. We knew at the top of the show that pit strategy some way or somehow was going to come into this race. It always seems to here at Vegas. Those drivers that made 2 stops from our last caution about lap 55 or so. Zach Novak finished 18 seconds back in position number 10. Taylor Hirsch right behind him, and David Rattler in 13th. So it might have worked out if we had a little bit more green flag racing in the first half of the race. But Ryan Luza's strategy, albeit that little miscue on pit road, it played out. He's in victory lane for a 2nd consecutive race and a 2nd consecutive year at Las Vegas.
We'll be sure to talk with him about that in a moment, but as he continues his victory lap, we look top to bottom with a look at your RaceSpotTV full race results for round number 4 of this 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. Ryan Luza, the Phenom Racing team, back-to-back wins this season and back-to-back wins at Las Vegas. Gets him the checkered flag here this evening, and Ray Alfala right there in 2nd. Nicholas Shelton also close to breaking through and getting that first career win. Still a very solid 3rd place result in this one. Obviously the big mover, Chris Shearburn, 39th to 4th to break into the top 5. Michael Gash right behind him in 5th. Chris Overland ends up in 6th. Michael Conti, very impressive run late to get up to 7th position. Brad Davies in 8th spot. Brian Schoenberg is 9th. And your pole sitter, Zach Novak, rounds out the top 10.
What might have been for Taylor Hurst. He is in position number 11 after running many laps in the top 5 throughout the evening. Nick Ottinger in 12th. 13th is David Rattler. Ryan Lowe in 14th. And Colton Davis, great run in 15th, was a little bit closer towards the front of the field on that green flag run. Bobby Zielinski, first driver, 1 lap down in 16th. Casey Kerwin, Cody Bias, Andrew Fayash III, and Nolan Scott, all 1 lap down to 20th.
Logan Clampett also called the wrong part of the strategy booklet. He comes home in 21st, Blake Reynolds in 22nd, Casey Tucker 23rd, Matt Busa 24th, Jake Sturgios 25th, Phil Diaz 26th, Timmy Hill 27th, Adam Gilliland 28th, Marcus Richardson 29th, and Christian Challoner in 30th.
31st position, still 2 laps down. That's going to be Alex Bergeron, 4 laps down. 32nd to Corey Vincent, and 33rd Dylan Duvall. And Prickgrass ends up in 34th. Joe Letterello is 35th, and then you got Keegan Leahy, Jimmy Mullis, Derek Bordeaux, and Jarl Tien. All the way to the back, 39 cars tonight from Vegas. all chasing after Ryan Luz at the end of it, who ends up in victory lane. We'll take one more opportunity to step aside, get a word from our friends at NASCAR.com/tickets, and when we come back for the RaceSpotTV post-race show, we'll talk with your top finishers and get you set for the next race on the season. We go back short track racing from Richmond in 2 weeks' time. So we'll take this opportunity to step aside. Back in a moment. Ryan Luz, your winner. You're watching the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series at RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live.
Section PU 402, row 41.
Jimmy Johnson, the fastest gun in the West.
Section 104, row 4.
Blaney out of the first win.
Section 25, row 3.
What a year for Bubba.
Section O, row 25.
Keselowski's going to win at Talladega.
Section 156, row 4.
Push to the lead on the backstretch.
Section 233, row 1.
Martin Truex Jr. wins.
You get a seat, but we doubt you'll ever use it. Grab your seats at NASCAR.com/tickets today.
And welcome back to RaceSpotTV's continuing coverage of the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, where tonight from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Ryan Luz is your race winner in the fourth race of this 2018 campaign. A very exciting end as the Slip Angle Motorsports teammates were going at it for 1-2. And the number 6 machine stormed the party late, and he gets his second career win here in the entertainment capital of the world, his second on the season. And as we kick off our RaceSpotTV post-race show, we go trackside and get a word with the driver of the number 6 machine, Ryan Luz, who tonight comes out on top. And I'm sure he may have preferred if it wasn't as exciting as it was. The car was so very good on that long run to the end. And Ryan, the mistake on a pit road meant that you had your work cut out for you late. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I wasn't pleased about that, and I really didn't think I lost that much time, but apparently it was really bad. I lost like 7 seconds or something crazy, and really made it a lot harder. The car got really, really bad towards the middle of the run, and I knew it'd be super, super late before I got to him if I did it all. And we had to deal with lap traffic there, so that was just craziness. None of us were, like, we were all on the edge of it trying to drive the cars late in the run, 55 lap old tires. And luckily, I had enough time, and the car got really, really fast there at the end compared to them. Yeah, it was crazy for sure. It's hard to drive.
Obviously, when you made that mistake, you knew you were going to be shuffled back in traffic. Did you still think, though, that you had the speed to get the job done? And did that rely on this race going green? Or at that point, were you maybe hoping for a yellow to catch up? Because you had a decent margin when you came down pit road. So obviously, you lost about 7 seconds or so. But that really only put you about 3 seconds behind the 8 ball or whatever, because you had, X amount of time in front of those guys. So when that mistake happens and you get back out on a racetrack, did you still think you could win this race? And how did you kind of pick apart that closing run to make sure you got there literally, just in the knack of time, made that pass for the race win with about 4 to go?
Yeah, I really thought I was going to be fine. I didn't realize how much time I had lost until I got up on the track and I was behind my teammate Chris, and he was in like 5th. I remember him talking about it. I'm like, oh, I really lost a ton of time and I have to go. And I saw Shelton was like 5.5 seconds up or something, and I was 5.5 seconds up on him when before I pitted, so that was like over 10 seconds right there. And I knew I'd get a little bit because I had a little bit fresher tires, and then we'd even out, and then I'd catch him there at the end. So luckily it played out. I think a caution would have been okay too, because like the short run we were really fast as well. But I actually preferred that it would stay green, and it did. And the lap cars did a great job. Like it was still kind of crazy, but everybody held their own and didn't ruin the battle for the win. So that was good by everybody.
We saw a lot of good action on track tonight. Not many people are able to say that they've been able to find a victory lane here in Vegas multiple times. You now join Jake Sturgis as the only multi-time winners at this racetrack. He got it in 2012 and 2014. You back up your win last year with the checkered flag here tonight. We saw you making those moves late, entering high and then slicing low off for the corners. What is it about that this racetrack tonight that really fits into your wheelhouse that lets you get that aggressive late and fight for race wins like you've been doing?
I think it, like with this new build, or not say the new build, the track heat model that we got like over a year ago now. I think it lets you adjust to how your car's driving and run any line. So I was super loose, so I just started letting the car fly up top in 1 and 2 and try to use the right front as much as I could, and not really lean on the right rear. And 3 and 4 is a different story. Like nobody could run the top because it was so loose. So I had to do all the work I could in 1 and 2, just helping the car out. And luckily, the car was like good on the long run after doing that, and it didn't plow the right front off. So I really love the build. I think the drivers have a lot more input. The cars are really sketchy come late run. I think it's crazy to drive. Everybody's just about to spin out. I think in the first run, I about spun out and took Zach with me, but luckily I didn't. Got the car adjusted, got it really good on the long run. Feel really bad for Keegan. He definitely was gonna kill everybody. Like he had a ton of time on me. But huge thanks to him. Car was great. He'll be one to fight with for the rest of the year, I'm sure.
And speaking of the rest of the year, you guys have got a little bit of a streak going with back-to-back wins. Any difference, different approach, any difference that you've noticed in these last 2 weeks compared to the opening 2? Because you guys seem to be back in stride with where you were last year.
Not really. Daytona's not really a track for me. And Phoenix, I think I had one of the best cars, and I choked in qualifying and didn't even put a lap down. I started dead last. So Daytona being what it was, a third and a win. Can't really look down at that at all. I mean, pretty much picking up where we left off last year. I think Keegan is a huge factor come pace if we all make it there, for sure.
Well, we're not all that far from that point. I know it's still early in the season, but we were talking at the top of it all about third distance now, up until when that playoff starts, and you guys have been able to net your second win of the year. I know it was a very long run to the end there, so I'm sure you want to break, so we'll let you get out of here. But as always, Ryan, the sponsors, the folks behind the scenes, who powers that number 6 Ford?
Just thanks to everybody at Phenom Racing Team. Keegan does a ton of work. Chris was really fast tonight. Good job to him for pulling the top 5 for us. Derek had a little bit of bad luck. He jumped the restart, but made a pass before the line, and that really ruined his race. I think we'd have had 3 of us in the top 5 there. So just unfortunate there. Thanks to everybody. The team is running super well right now. And thanks to Fast Track Sims for being on board again this year with me.
Well, we're getting a good look at them on the side of the car, Ryan. As always, we appreciate your time. Congratulations on the win, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks' time when we go elbows up, and we'll go short track racing again at Richmond. We'll catch you there.
Thanks, Evan.
Your race winner tonight from Las Vegas. He was your race winner 2 weeks ago as well in Fontana, back-to-back for Ryan Luza, who is victorious here tonight in a very exciting finish. And you rerun those final 10 laps, and you could probably find a couple of different outcomes. One of the drivers that was right in that mix is Ray Alfala. Not the first win for him on the season, but a great result in the P2. Trackside with him is Tim Terry.
Yeah, Ray Alfala comes home with position number 2. This red VRS machine was quick, and Ray, you've had a couple of moments to digest what went on in those last couple laps. There's some lap cars there coming and going. You've got a guy up in front that's trying to win his first NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series race. Would you have done anything different if you had it to play back again?
Oh, I'm not sure. There was so much going on there on that last run. We knew we really didn't have anything for Ryan. He had issues going into his pit box, and they told us that, and he came out of pit road behind us, and so we were figuring he was going to get there at some point, and then he kind of stalled out midway through the run, and then he was really, really good at the very end again. So it wasn't a surprise that he was there, but yeah, I'm racing my teammate. He's trying to go for his first win, so I'm not taking it easy on him, but there's a lot of juggling a lot of situations there at the end of the race.
And this thing on restarts, and albeit we didn't have many this evening, but this number 2 car, it was good on the long run, but man, oh man, those first couple laps you were digging.
Yeah, well, we were lacking some pace, or we were good for about a lap, and then we fell off, and then we came on strong sort of at the end. Then in the middle of the race, we kind of just faded at the beginning, or we faded in one of those middle runs, and that kind of put us back there a bit. But we had the right pit strategy thanks to Bobby Zelensky, and I know he had a tough race back there, but he still ended up, I think, with the top 15. So it's just good to get the virtual racing school some airtime up there, racing for the win. And so far we've improved our position every single race, so that means we're going to win at Richmond, I think.
Well, that was my next question. We head to Richmond in 2 weeks, and points really don't mean a whole lot as long as you're locked into the playoffs. But for what it's worth, you're on top of the point standings after 4 races. Are we going to get another win at Richmond and continue this pace that we set the first couple of races?
Well, we were pretty fast at Phoenix with the short track tire, which is different from what we've been running here the past 2 weeks. I think we'll have a shot, and we won there last year, so I think we'll be strong there. Richmond isn't necessarily one of my favorite tracks, but I've had success there, so I'll take that. And we're still building on things, and there's a new build coming in just a couple months, and then we go through the summer stretch, and then there's another build when the playoffs start. So there's still a lot of changes that could happen. So we're not too concerned, but you're always trying to find more speed.
You mentioned VRS. Who else is on this red rocket that got it to second place at Vegas?
Yeah, well, everybody on Slip Angle Motorsports, thanks to Turkey, Sal, and Liam for helping out on the pit box. And of course, thanks to RaceSpot for the broadcast and iRacing and Peak. It's fun racing in this series, and that's kind of what I show up for. Is that stuff right there at the end. We're racing for the win, and it's just a very competitive, very close racing, and really for the most part, it's very, very clean racing. And I don't think the drivers in the series get enough credit for how clean and how close the racing is, and how nobody gives an inch, but we managed to not wreck most of the time. So, props to all the racing out there. We were about 5 or 6 cars all close together in different laps, and we all just managed to make it through. So, just looking forward to next race. And remember, go to virtualracingschool.com for data packs and coaching and telemetry, and you can learn a lot using the service.
And there's Ray Alfala coming home in position number 2 for the number 2 team this evening. Believe Randy has caught up with a guy that came so close to winning his first NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series race, and Nicholas Shelton.
I'm stood by with the driver of that number 12 car. And, well, Nicholas, how much are you wishing this race tonight with 163 laps?
Probably, 100%. I wish that would happen, but it didn't, so it's okay.
Now, in the race, it was sort of an interesting strategy race today, because we saw a lot of people who went through a very odd strategy in terms of trying to come down. They came down pit road before the fuel window ever opened, and they tried to do the double stint, which I sort of thought from the get-go was never going to work. And, looking at their finishing position tonight, definitely didn't work out for them. They finished well down the order from where they possibly could have, and driver is messaging now referring to them as goofies, who seems to think the same exact way. Why would people, in your opinion, go for a strategy like that and force themselves into having to come down pit road another time and then having to run their way through the field in order to get back to the front?
I'm guessing they could just make up the time and new tires, but these tires, they just fall off to the same times, like a couple tenths of each other. They do that really fast, so 10 laps into the run, you're not going to gain much on anybody after, even if they're on 40-lap tires. So I don't know what they were thinking, but I'm glad they went ahead and pitted because it helped me out.
Well, Slip Angle in general looked very, very strong tonight. 2 cars in the top 3. Overland takes a strong 6th place finish as well. A couple of your drivers from your group had decent pace, but got some bad luck. Bobby Zielinski is a driver that comes to mind in that respect. But Phenom has seemed like they were just on another level. Keegan Lee was dominating this race before he found the side of the number 3 of Jarl Tien, and then Ryan Michael Luza was pretty much the car to beat from there. What does Phenom have on these cookie cutter tracks that you guys might be missing? Because they seem to have a long run. It's almost like Ryan flipped a switch there when he eventually got quick. He suddenly had 2 tenths that you guys didn't have.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because if I knew it, I'd put it in our cars and go to the front too, or go faster at least. Because I don't know what they're doing, but it's whatever it is. They've had it for a while, and we can't find it yet.
Congratulations on a big finish, Nicholas, even regardless of the fact that it's bittersweet, knowing that if it had just been a few miles less, you would have been a first-time winner in this championship and would have been Evan coming to talk to you instead of me. And let's be honest, it's worth winning a race just for that in its own right. But before we let you go, who would you like to thank? Who's on the car that you'd need to plug?
Ford Entertainment Group and Jaws Graphics for painting the car. And if you're looking for a PC, go to Jeffrey Ford on iRacing because he makes good PCs. So there you go.
Nicholas Shelton from Slip Angle Motorsports. And moving on down the order, I believe Mr. Tim Terry stood by with Chris Shearburn.
This is like a blast from the past. Chris Shearburn comes home with his first NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series top 5 run. And Chris, coming home with a top 5 run in this series, you've done a lot in your sim racing career, but how big is this?
It's pretty big. It's definitely unexpected. I didn't do a lot of testing before the race. Kind of relied on teammates for setups and information. Actually started in the back just to kind of ride it out, and the car was pretty good, especially in the long run. And we just managed to get up to the front towards the end.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We only had 2 cautions to bunch up the field. We did have that long green flag run with some pit stops in there, but started 39th, worked your way to 4th. You had to pass a lot of cars tonight, didn't you?
Yeah, probably didn't pass as many as it looked. I think there's a lot of guys that had problems, and everybody was on that split strategy. But yeah, there was a lot of excitement for sure. Started basically, I think, last or second to last, so basically got to see everybody at least once, I think.
Quietly, methodically working your way up the point standings, trying to get into that playoff bubble. Is that the goal right now, or what do you have set for the rest of the season? Do we see this 36 car in victory lane before this is all said and done?
Yeah, I'd like to think so, but probably not. I mean, you never know. This series, everybody's so close, and you get the right track position at the right time, and anybody in this series can win a race given the right circumstances. So we're just gonna keep plugging away. And honestly, I just kind of went into the race hoping to get the top 15 or 20, establish some points. I don't really have any goals as far as making the chase or anything like that. I was hoping just to stay in the top 20 and not have to race pro next season.
We go to Richmond in 2 weeks' time. Where does that rank on your favorite track list?
I'd have to say probably in my sim racing career, it's probably been one of my better tracks, if not my best track. I typically look forward to it. I'm not really sure what's going to happen this time around. I've kind of had some health issues the last couple of weeks, so I haven't really been able to put the time into it. So we'll have to see what we can do. But yeah, it's usually one of my better tracks, so I'm kind of looking forward to it just because of that.
You mentioned the team that has helped you get to where you are right now, but you got some blank quarter panels on this race car. Are we going to get these filled before the end of the season?
I don't know. I haven't really been going out and looking for sponsors. I'm on Phenom Racing Team with Keegan, Derek, and Ryan, and Keegan's been doing a good job of picking up the slack with the setups since I've been kind of MIA, and they've been having some good finishes, and now Ryan's won 2 in a row, so we've been kind of plugging along. But yeah, hopefully we pick somebody up, and that'd be kind of cool. Like I said, I haven't really been looking too hard, so it's probably part of the reason. Plus, I don't really run up front too often.
Well, the first top 5 finish might get some eyes looking at you. There's Chris Shearburn finishing in a position number 4 here this evening. Hard to believe it's his first top 5 in this series with all that he's done in the sim racing esport. We're going to go over to Randy, who I believe Michael Guest has just walked in here too with a top 5 finish. We'll kick it over to him.
Yeah, Michael Guest, he slipped into my sight line right on time, was able to get a hold of him. So 5th place finishing driver tonight, Michael Guest from Nexus Esports. Michael, we've been seeing you wheel a lot of things on RaceSpot for a while, and well, really since the last build with the likes of Rallycross, and we've seen you in World of Outlaws, and you've really stepped your game up here on the NASCAR side of things. I believe it's the second time we've gotten the chance to speak to you the first 4 rounds of this championship. That 54 car was fast today. Tell us about it.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a rocket ship. At the beginning of the run, it was a little bit tight, and I would lose a couple spots off of that, but as soon as about 8 to 10 laps came in, I was able to get to the top side when a lot of other people were just running the bottom the entire run, and I was able to just fly up there and make a lot of the time up that I would lose, and then some by lap 30 or 40. So, I mean, by the middle of the race, especially with the strategy going on, I knew I had a top 10 to top 5 set if nothing went wrong.
Talking about this race surface here, it's always been a track that's been very raceable on iRacing in terms of the multiple grooves. There's some bumps on the inside lines that sort of help with that, and the progressive banking as well. But I believe this is sort of the first race that we've really had in this championship with the latest and greatest in terms of the way the track sort of changes over the run and the rubber getting in and the track heating up. How has those updates really changed the way that Las Vegas is raceable? Because we saw people running up near the wall tonight. It's typically not something you see on the sim.
Oh yeah, for sure. The first 10 laps, of course, people could run the bottom and middle and stuff, but at least for my car, once the long run came in, I couldn't use the bottom very well because I would hit the bumps and just slide up. So when I was able to run the top, it was just digging. So I had a very good handling car. I was able to run the top really right next to the wall in 3 and sometimes even 1 and make a lot of time on people. And even the very bottom lane, which doesn't come in a lot at Vegas in 1 and 2, that was even working with people like Chris Shearburn.
Now, talking about the sort of landscape of this Peak Antifreeze series right now, it seems like Phenom and Slip Angle are really the teams to beat. They kind of trade top 5 finishes and wins back and forth. Slip Angle's yet to get one, but they've been very close, and they had 2 of their drivers in the top 3 tonight. But from you as someone sort of sitting from the outside looking in at those 2 teams, both Phenom as well as Slip Angle, what do you feel that they're sort of finding speed where compared to you that you're losing it? Where do you feel disadvantaged right now? Is it in the middle of the corners? Is it from corner off, or is it just long run tire life in general?
Well, it's really a mix of everything. At Auto Club, we really missed the setup a good bit, and after 10-15 laps, we would be really bad, loose and tight, and just everything all together. So coming into this race, we really hit on something, and they're still getting us a little bit on the short run, but we've really caught up for the long run, and hopefully we can carry that to more tracks.
Well done once again, Michael. The strong 5th place finish, getting a solid bit of points as you leave Vegas. Who helps out over at Nexus Esports that you need to thank?
Oh yeah, I'd definitely like to thank Nathan Lyon for all the hard work he puts into these setups. I'd also like to thank LSR-TV, you guys for broadcasting this, and JD for painting this awesome car that I have.
Well, I won't hold it too much against you for mentioning LSR. 2 other guys are working today in this booth, so thanks again, Michael. Good luck to you out at Richmond.
Thanks.
We're going to throw it back over to Evan to close this thing out.
Big thanks to our top 5 for chatting with us. Ryan Lewis, Ray Alfala, Nicholas Shelton, Chris Shearburn, and Michael Guest. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 tonight. And again, we always appreciate when they give us some time post-race and give us some thoughts on how the race went. And when we talked about how this race in the past specifically, Randy, is, had that little bit of strategy. It's Vegas, so you got to throw all the analogies out there. You got to roll the dice, see if you can play your cards right. And the possibilities are endless.
All the puns.
All of the puns, and I think we used them up a good little bit tonight, but it really came down to, in the end, just a good hard race. The mistake by Lewis set it all up, and if he didn't do that, it would have been a completely different look, but it was fun at the end. That's exactly what I want to see, especially on a long green flag run like that. Can't really complain about what we saw tonight.
Yeah, it really is. If Luza had not have made that mistake, we would have seen a fantastic race for second between two teammates versus a couple of three-wide moments fighting for the race lead, and Luza getting it by a few tenths over the slip-angle drivers of Alfala and Shelton. So in that respect, I'm pretty happy to see Luza make that mistake, cost himself a bit of time. You never really want to say that about a driver, but when it makes things more exciting, it's always worth it. But as we look forward, Evan, I think we need to think about Richmond. Richmond, of course, a racetrack that has gotten very involved. Think they're going to be wanting their Chaos Crew guys to be super up to speed on that little 3/4 mile oval, because that's going to be an exciting race when we officially go short track racing here in the Peak Antifreeze series. And you know that group wants to bring that home just for bragging rights and pretty much to please the sponsor.
And Tim, you made the point chatting post-race with Ray that the objective is to just be on the screen right now, to be up there in the points, to fight for the championship, but can't take away for the fact that Ray Alfala has taken the lead in this. Again, things could have been very different if Keegan Leahy did not get into that accident, because he looked bad fast earlier tonight, but it'll be Alfala, then Luza, and then Leahy, with Conti and Zelensky through the top 5. You see the top 10 total on your screen right now, but nothing is certain when we head to short tracks at Richmond. I think is the epitome of that, and that's next one up in 2 weeks' time for round number 5.
We've seen races there that have run green to checker between the NASCAR iRacing Pro Series and also the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. So nothing really surprises me when we go to Richmond Raceway. But when you look at this race, and something poignant that Ray Alfala said, we went over 100 laps green to the end of this one. You had guys on different strategies, cars coming to the front, cars getting past, and guys battling for the lead. We had some lap cars make their way around that lead battle and really not have a hiccup, per se, in the battle. And we had some different strategies, but everybody played nice. Everybody minded their P's and Q's, and a lot of respect between these drivers, and hats off to the field for running those 100-plus laps to the end, especially with all those strategies. A green flag to the end. But yeah, Richmond is going to be exciting in 2 weeks' time, and you look at that point battle. Ray Alfala and Ryan Luza look pretty safe up there, but anything can happen over these next 8 races into the playoffs. But that battle from about 6th place all the way back to about 20th place, I believe there's like 20 or 25 points in there, so one small slip up, and you're going to be on the outside looking in. There's a lot that can happen, and I can't wait to go to Richmond Raceway and get some short track racing in.
We look forward to heading to that one, but with that being said, round number 4 does fall into our rear view mirror. As always, want to thank everybody on the team who makes these Tuesday night broadcasts possible. Camera angles provided by East Vanapalo, broadcast CG, that's all done by Simon Grossman, Kevin Papey, and their team. Andy Werder on the graphics, Will Vincent, Hugo Louise, Drew Adamson, Cisco Scaramouche, everybody else behind the scenes here at RaceSpotTV, and of course at iRacing for putting this all together, and for your broadcast team this evening. For Randy Cheneth, Tim Terry, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Ryan Luza on going back-to-back 2 wins in a row this year, and now 2 wins in a row as well in Las Vegas. The series will take its off week next Tuesday night, and it returns on Tuesday, April the 24th from the Richmond Raceway. That race and every race of the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series can be found right here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. Until next time, good night from Las Vegas.